There it goes. Call the meeting to order. Ben Newberg, would you please lead us in the pledge?
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we'll observe a moment of silence. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Hestev, absent. Guston.
Here.
Zadra.
Here.
Esperanza. Dorch. Ayazi. Cashel.
Mr. Chef called me and he won't be in today. All right. Mr. Newberg, you're here to fill the government class requirement? Would you stand up, sir? Well, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Before we go to approval of the agenda, J6 and 7 will be held. Yeah, we should get public comment out of the way, shouldn't we?
Out of the way.
Bill Fisher.
Thank you. You know, I've been before you guys before and talked about pep spice and bath salts and bubbles, and what those things are is fake marijuana, fake methamphetamine, and fake cocaine. I've been working with drug addicts, and I'm also an ex-drug addict. Intravenous heroin use, intravenous cocaine use, intravenous methamphetamine use is not nearly as bad as the effects I've seen in the last 3 years since these little monkeys. They're cute, just like this book. These little monkeys right here. They're just like kids' toys, you know what I mean? Little kids. Most of you people in the public.
Talk into the mic, please, sir.
Most people in the public are not aware of this stuff. 90% of this stuff is made in China. If you remember, we've had toys recalled because of lead in the paint. Toys for infants. Can you imagine what garbage is in this? People are snorting it, smoking it, injecting it. You know, it's done many, many ways. The drug addicts that I've worked with for 10 years used to be able to work. They used to be able to, looked like us, normal. In the last 3 years since this garbage has been imported, it's called methadone, which is the bath salts from China. You've seen people with severe acne problems. You know, I felt sorry for them when I was a kid because they just looked, you know, there's nothing they could do about it. Go downtown, look at these people. There is not that much acne in the whole world. These drugs not only physically are debilitating people, but mentally these people are just losing it. You talk about a cost to us for our taxes. This garbage is going to cost us not billions but trillions, because these kids in elementary school, I started smoking cigarettes when I was 13. This garbage, bath salts, spice, bubbles, whatever you want to call it, is as addicting or more addicting and more dangerous and more detrimental to your mental and physical health than any drug I have ever seen. And I wish I could take the time to show this to you all. And I wish Channel 8, Channel 4, and Channel 2 was here to show you that there's no difference between this children's book and this garbage, the way it's being marketed. I have one more thing. You remember the Camel cigarettes, how they were marketing the kids? This is the Camel of the illegal drug. They call them designer drugs. We need to do something about this, and I'm not just talking Reno, I'm talking the whole country. God bless.
For the record, Ed Hawkins, Ward 4 NAB Chair. I want to thank Community Development. Last meeting 2 weeks ago that the council met, I had discussed the problem with lights going in from the Burger King drive-through. I had received a phone call within 2 hours after your meeting here from Vern Cluse, as well as Claudia. They worked together with the owner. The barrier's been put up temporarily until the landscaping can be done for the Burger King. Vern's still working on the city, or the Quick Stop gas station next door where the car lights from the car wash are going into a couple of homes. I've got a concern, and I've discussed this with community development as far as diesel trucks and their tractor trailers sitting out just south of Scalari's off the tarmac. It's not signed. They're leaving trash as well as their urine bottles on the ground. There's a 24-foot travel trailer that's been there for a couple weeks. Gentleman comes and goes at nighttime, and that hasn't been dealt with yet. I'd like to see something done and some heat put under somebody to make sure we get rid of the garbage out there. I've got 4 appointees that'll be coming in front of you today for my NAB. I'd like to have those people appointed so we can continue business. In 6 months that we've been together with the Northeast, we've met 3 times. I'm done with that. And I'd like you to take the restrictions off the terms that can be served underneath the NAB membership. I've got a couple of passionate people out in the valley there that were told, thank you for your service last May, and they wanted to continue to serve. They'd been on for 6 years. I'd like to see that done away with. I mean, they're serving at the pleasure of the council, and at any given time, if one of us do something wrong, you have the obligation to get rid of us or say, see ya, don't want to be ya, that kind of thing. So I would like to see that taken off the books. If people want to serve for 20 years, fine. We're not in an elected position because we are appointed by the council. And I'd like that discussed at some time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dene.
Sam Dene, the encyclopedia of Reno government. And the only difference between Sammy and that Jeremy fellow is that the media is not deathly afraid of Jeremy, deathly afraid and jealous of Jeremy, like the Reno media is deathly afraid and jealous of Sam Dene. I'm here to talk about 2 things today. One, the attempted dismantling of the Reno Fire Department, and 2, the attempted demolishment of the senior care facilities around the community, especially Daybreak. And also to talk about, I'm here to talk about that pathetic cartel masquerading as the Reno media. There's nothing more pathetic in America than the Reno media. And that goes from the newspaper. Who can call it a newspaper? They don't know up from down, left from right. They don't even know there's a 10-ton elephant in all of these rooms, otherwise known as Sam Dene. That's me. First of all, we should not be dismantling the Reno Fire Department. That should not be allowed to happen. Whatever you need to do, do not allow that to happen. I was instrumental in the merging. Of the fire departments, the Washoe Fire Department and the Reno Fire Department, about 8 years ago. Sam was instrumental in that merger taking place along with a few other people. And it's not a perfect merger, I'll guarantee you that. But I'll tell you one thing, these fire people proved their capabilities in the 2 disastrous fires we've had in the last couple of months. And they could have been much more disastrous if we had been operating on the dismantled fire department. Secondly, I have to talk about the attempted demolishment of the senior care facilities around this community. It is ludicrous. They're trying to shut Daybreak down, which will cost the community far more money than they possibly can save. As a matter of fact, that fellow running the senior facility over there, and what a mushroom. He says about Daybreak, it's the perfect math. What else can, the demolishment of Daybreak is the perfect math. Math. Why doesn't he say it's the perfect solution? Look at the media over there. He doesn't even know what mathematics is. He thinks it's the perfect deal. It's not the perfect deal. Those people, they pay their way, first of all, but the mothers and fathers, or actually the sons and daughters who are taking care of those people during the evenings, need a place to have those people stay during the day so they continue with their jobs. If they have to take care of those people, there's nothing you'll be able to do. Last, some people think that Sam doesn't like that new children's museum over there. That's a flat lie. That is a flat lie. That children's museum exists because of Sam. Because of Sam, that museum exists, because it was sitting over there dormant for 5 years, and I made fun of you people so many times. I made fun of you, denigrated you right to your faces so many times that you worked out a special deal with those people, and the museum exists because of Sam Dene.
Thank you very much. Having no other public comment, I'll close the public comment section. Yes. Approval of the agenda. Before we go into here, before I get a motion, item J6 and 7 will be heard at 2 o'clock. Pulled items are item D1. The presentation on RTC requested this item be pulled. Item 1 and I1 and I2 are being pulled at the request of the Attorney's Office. Proclamations, there's none. Presentations is on the project of I-80. Public comments at 12 noon. Public hearing, anything after 12:15. Time certain, 2 o'clock on 6 and 7. Time certain, 4 o'clock on item J4. The zoning administrator hearing on the Wild Orchid, and J5 on the sign permit for Market Street billboard. Time certain at 4 o'clock. Public hearing this evening. I have requested that this item be continued. We will open it up, and then we will continue it until a former date when they get all the information and stuff pulled together. That's the reason there. There will be a joint meeting of the Reno City Council and the Redevelopment Agency. And then all due respect to Mr. Scott, since he usually sits here all day, we might try to figure a time to work him in early.
Make him sit here.
I think he should suffer with us. Do you, any other changes? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple of them, I'm sorry. Item I-1 and I-2 on the drug paraphernalia, I know the city attorney's office had requested more time, but I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have anyone here to speak on that issue who wanted to speak today, because I would be...
I think we've got a couple of people that do want to speak, but I don't know yet. But I've been told we did, so we can see if they want to speak or not.
Yeah, that's the only thing I would request, is that if we pull it, then they can't speak. So if we could leave it on for, at least for the public to comment on, and I know Councilman Zadra, this was a big issue for you too, that we could leave it open and then just move to continue it instead of pulling it off the agenda.
You want to give me a motion on that?
Yeah, I would move to go ahead and approve the agenda and just leave I-1 and I-2 for public comment, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Any others? Any other changes? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda? That was just on I-1 and I-2. Did you wrap it all in?
I wrapped it all in, Mr.
I
Mayor.
should pay more attention, shouldn't I?
Red Bull.
Red Bull. Approval of the minutes for February 2nd and February 8th. Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second and a comment.
Discussion? Yes,
And I
sir.
thought that the note maker and the minutes maker did an exceptional job on these minutes. Thank you.
All right. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Cash disbursements, anybody got any? Mr. Guston, or, okay. Chair will approve, entertain a motion? Have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Presentations, I-80 project, Doug Malloy.
Mr. Mayor, while they're coming up, I don't have anything on the consent agenda item to pull. Does anybody? We might be able to get a lot of people out of here with that.
Well, let's see. Anybody got any? Well, we'll jump to the consent agenda. Item E. You want to pull C3, B3, D? D is in dog 3. Okay. E. Jesus. Somebody speak. I got to get a hearing aid, I guess. E3. Yeah. Okay, any others you want to pull? Chair will entertain a motion. All in favor, say aye. Those that oppose, oh, Mr. Dene, you wanted to say something. Excuse me. Before I take that roll call, let me have Mr. Dene speak. Go ahead, Mr. Dene.
Sam Dene, the
Thank you
encyclopedia.
very much, Mr. Dene. No, go ahead, Mr. Dene.
Did I get you all stirred up or something? I don't know, you're acting kind of strange.
I am strange.
Sam, you are strange. Now we know. And I got the message, so now we're even.
That's right.
Sam Dene, the Encyclopedia of Reno Government, and I'll be very brief. First of all, I'm in favor of this operation you're going to do for the Sierra Diamond Softball Club. And I don't know if they're here or not, but I'm in favor of you allowing them the use of some warehouses and stuff like that. There's a lot of vacant warehouses around this community, and I wish we could find use for more of these empty buildings, including some of the empty floors in this building right here. I understand that you're auctioning off some of the rooms, not auctioning, but renting out some of the rooms in City Hall. That's a new one. I wonder if you're getting a lot of takers on that, or how much you're charging. If I wanted to rent the City Hall here, how much would you charge me to have this room for maybe an hour, or 3 minutes even? Anyway, this is something that really piqued my interest, and for the folks out in TV land, this is the consent agenda where they're gonna vote on about 40 items, all with one vote. Maybe somebody pulled something off. But something that really piqued my interest is, and I don't know him, and I don't have anything against him. I'm not trying to take sides or speak for or against this, but I noticed that I've never heard of this man before. Matthew Flandermeyer. Now, he is about to become one of the most powerful men in Reno, apparently, or at least or else he's one of the wealthiest men. He is apparently going to take over on the order of 26 different operations, from a nightclub to a food store to a Hotel Ponderosa to, and this is for gaming and alcohol licenses that he's going to be given for this. And it's Save Mart, there's like 4 or 5 Save Marts, Smith's Food. I think anybody who looked at this consent agenda would really like to have at least a brief explanation of what is going on here with Mr. Flandermeyer taking over 30 establishments. And somebody over there is kind of smiling as if maybe everybody knows Mr. Flandermeyer except Sam Dene. At any rate, I would request as a citizen that you explain to a small degree what is going on here with Mr. Flandermeyer getting gaming and alcohol licenses in all these places.
He's taking the slot routes, I believe.
That's what he's doing.
Just the
He's-
slot routes,
He either bought a slot route or he took over a slot route, so it's just,
routes. And his
All
dad
right.
was John Jacob Slanderheimer Schmidt, so he's got royalties.
okay. I have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries. Item E3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is relating to the Northgate Golf Course, which there was a lot of work that went into to create that special assessment district that the residents would be coming forward to purchase the land. What I want from staff, not in an immediate time frame, but certainly before the next expense is brought forward, to have a list of projected expenses that will be associated with that. The initial description that was in conversation that was had at the table was that the citizens were paying for it, and this is now at least the second item that has come to us for finding money within our operations to provide services or items that are needed there. So I'd like to see an entire list, Mr. Manager, of what projected expenses are still going to be coming forward. There was the study previously, and now the insurance, so that we can see what that total amount will be and a projection where from the budget are those expenses expected to come from. Okay. And I would move to approve this.
Have a motion, second. All in, oops, excuse me.
I
Yes,
just want
sir.
to be clear, this is $2,200 we're talking about.
Right.
You know, in the meantime, there's another golf course where they're threatening to take something away. We get $7.5 million, and they pay nothing. We have baseball parks. I mean, this is $2,200.
And that's why I'm not opposing the activity, but we had discussion that it would be at the citizens' expense, but there will be a list of things that will need to be.
Well, then let's make it even across the board then. That's all I'm saying, is you can't promise people at another golf course that we're going to fix every problem that ever had from them, build a new golf course, and these guys, they're asking for $2,200. They're not even asking, it's just to put it on our insurance.
Right,
And then we want a full-blown report. Okay. I'm willing to do that, but that's going to happen on everything then.
I'm looking to have information about a new service that we've not had to budget for previously so that we know what's coming forward.
That Miracle on Turf, ring a bell?
Okay. Mr. President.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Councilman Zutter, I understand there's an expense, but to me, it comes down to community pride. It's no different than what we're trying to do on Miracle on Turf, how horrible that looks, a blighted piece of land that the city owns in our community. It's no different than Northgate. I mean, I've been up there. I think anything we can do to try and in this case, you had the residents step up to the plate and pay a lot of money. So I think we have an obligation as a city to make sure that the city doesn't own lots that are in bad condition. I mean, we have a whole code enforcement office that goes out and cites people for code violations, but yet the city itself has properties that don't look so well. So I think we have an obligation, Mr. Mayor, to move forward
And I
on
totally
this.
agree. I did not pull it to deny it. I pulled it to have discussion that it's a new item, that the discussion would be citizen-generated, but we know there are going to be expenses and services that the city will need to be responsible for. I'd like to see what those are so we know where they're going to come from.
And this is ratification of the risk management so that we have it covered, so we're covered. All right, I have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Now, we will go to presentations. We have two of them? We have just one, yes. D2, yes. NDOT. Sorry about the confusion.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Reno City Council members. My name is Jeff LaRude, Project Manager with the Department of Transportation, and this is Jason Breda, Project Manager with Granite Construction. And we're here today to give you an update on the I-80 Robb Drive to Vista Boulevard Design Build project. Today we'll be talking about the 2011 accomplishments, the 2012 construction, and then we'll do a little question and answer at the end, if there are any. This slide right here shows the anticipated 2012 schedule for the work to be done on the I-80 corridor. As you can see, we're already out there doing some work now, but if you look at the color coding, it goes through the various things that we're going to accomplish this year. In 2011, we made some great leaps and bounds. We totally replaced the westbound pavement between Keystone Avenue and 4th Street. That concrete was in place for like the last 40 years, so it was a long time coming. We've provided drainage improvements throughout the corridor. There's some widening happening between East McCarran and Vista Boulevard. We've deployed intelligent transportation systems, and what you'll see with this are we've got flow detectors and radars out there that give some real-time feedback to our traffic management center, and in turn they can post messages on the dynamic message signs that you see along the corridor, advising you of traffic accidents, travel times, things of that nature. We also implemented construction ramp meters early in the project to help alleviate some safety concerns. We began to prepare the loop ramp at Sparks Boulevard. We did some early landscape and aesthetic improvements. We took advantage of the traffic being on one side of the road and started painting on some of the bridges. There's a website out there, keeprenosparksmoving.com, that has live traffic cameras. If you click on the camera icon, it'll show you updated pictures from the corridor that are updated about every 2 to 3 minutes. We've got new LED overhead lighting throughout the project limits, and there's some safety and drainage improvements specifically at Robb Drive. This is a picture of the existing pavement as you're looking westbound from the Spaghetti Bowl. As you can see, that was in some really bad shape. And this is the new concrete pavement between Keystone and 4th. This is situated at Keystone looking back towards the Spaghetti Bowl, so you can see the new improved concrete right there. These are the construction ramp meters that I talked about. Early in the project, we identified some safety concerns where we were having really tight merging traffic onto I-80. So by implementing these construction ramp meters, it allowed for the traffic to enter one car at a time and have more of a zipper type weaving effect with I-80 rather than a slug of traffic going on at one time. This is the widening between East McCarran and Vista Boulevard. What we're accomplishing here is by widening to the center, we're able to create auxiliary lanes between on-ramps and downstream off-ramps. This helps provide safer weaving between the traffic coming onto I-80. These next few slides are the landscape and aesthetic concepts, which include gateways, monuments, sound wall treatments, tank farm screens just east of Johnnesquaga's Nugget, and vegetation enhancements. This is a picture of the concept we have for Robb Drive, the sign of Robb Drive and the fencing aesthetic. And there's a monument off to the side there on the right. This is similar at Ralston. Here we have Evans Avenue, the Spaghetti Bowl with 395. These are the tank farm screens that I was talking about just east of Johnnesquaga's Nugget. Sparks Boulevard, and then Vista Boulevard. With that, we go into the 2012 construction. I'll turn it over to Jason, and he can talk about upcoming construction this year.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Jason Breda. I'm the project manager with Granite Construction Company. So let me got a real high-level schedule. We've done our traffic switch. Obviously back to putting all the traffic on the westbound side so we can begin our construction downtown. That'll be ongoing through September when we plan to get those lanes open back up, as well as having completion of the landscaping and aesthetics and all other major components of the work we're intending to get completed by September. And then we'll have some administrative and kind of punch list type work moving out through December. Okay, so 2012 construction, what's that look like? We've got to obviously complete the concrete pavement on the eastbound lanes downtown from 4th to Keystone. As I mentioned, we've switched that traffic up to about Wells. We're working on a piece in the middle there between 395 and 4th Street that we've got to get completed in order to have enough pavement width to put all of the traffic on the westbound lanes. So we'll get that done here in about the next 3 weeks, and we'll switch the remainder of the traffic. We've got some geometric improvements to do, which is predominantly a striping and resurfacing on the I-80 eastbound ramp to 395 southbound. We'll be installing permanent ramp metering at the locations that currently have the construction ramp metering at Center Street and Wells. And then we're also working on a traffic feasibility study on the option of adding another permanent ramp meter at the Keystone on-ramp. So we'll be presenting that information in the future if it looks like that's something that's going to work out. We've got to finish out the auxiliary lanes out there in Sparks between McCarran and Vista. We should have those paved out and the median barrier completed end of March, first part of April. We've topped off the embankment at the Sparks Boulevard loop ramp. That's in a settlement period, so once that settlement's completed, we'll get that paved. And then, some other scope of work that we mentioned last year is that we're restriping Rob de Vista end to end of the job with the recessed striping and an epoxy paint. And in addition, what's not on this slide is we're replacing all of the overhead sign structures throughout the corridor. Next slide, please. Ramp improvements, we'll just hit briefly on these. Out at Robb Drive, we're doing some improvements on both the westbound off and the eastbound on. West McCarran Boulevard, we've got some ramp improvements there. Virginia Street, westbound off downtown. Wells Avenue, on-ramp, that improvements correlates to the ramp metering improvements. We have to add some enforcement areas and some widening on that ramp. Sparks Boulevard, off-ramp and up on the overcrossing. And then East McCarran is actually the eastbound off-ramp where we're doing an improvement, as well as Sparks Boulevard, westbound on-ramp. That's not on the slide, but we are extending the merge length on that on-ramp. And then we're going to reconstruct the Rock Boulevard eastbound off-ramp. Next slide. Okay, so I want to hit a little bit on the maintenance of traffic for this year. Similar to last year, we're going to have 2 lanes each direction downtown. You're seeing that currently on a good part of it from Wells to Keystone. So part of the long-term closures in order to accomplish the pavement reconstruction downtown is the 80 East Wells on and off will be closed. Those are currently closed. The I-80 eastbound 4th Street off-ramp, once we make the traffic shift from 395 to 4th Street, we'll be closing that ramp. And concurrently with the eastbound off-ramp, we'll be closing the westbound on-ramp at 4th Street to accommodate that traffic condition. Also, there's a time where it looks like we're going to have to close the Center Street eastbound on-ramp to do those improvements for the not only the concrete tie-in, but for the ramp metering. It looks like that's about a 4-week construction window to get that completed. Along with all of these closures, we've been doing some extensive outreach, one-on-one with the business owners that are going to be impacted. So we've talked to people on Wells and 4th, among others, about what's coming up and what to expect. So I want to touch a little bit more on the specifics of the Center Street on-ramp closure. There's a lot of talk about what that means to the community and the businesses. So, what we're doing there is that, as I mentioned, there's a widening to accommodate the ramp metering there. Once we start that operation, we'll continue around the clock, working day and night to minimize the amount of time that's closed. And I just want to point out that, some of these ramp closures, what appears to be non-work periods, is it's important to understand that there's cure times for the concrete. So once we make a pour, the concrete has to reach strength prior to putting traffic onto it without impacting the long-term integrity of the concrete product. The timing of that ramp closure, we're working closely. So, timing and outreach, we're working closely with the city and RTC, Reno PD and others on when the most opportunistic window is to make that closure. We're meeting with them on a weekly basis to have discussions on that, among other construction-related and coordination issues. So we'll continue that as we move forward. This last bullet here says, there's no way to safely construct the ramp meter or that ramp without closing it. I can tell you that we are looking currently for a way to keep that ramp open as it stands today. We have not found an option to do that, but we're continuing to look through avenues and ways that we can keep that open and still get a quality product built for the Department of Transportation. Okay, Jeff mentioned earlier the Keep Reno Sparks Moving website. This is a section of that website where you can click on the specific closures for the ramps, and that will bring you up to a screen that shows you what the detour is and the alternative routes. So that's a tool that's out there for anyone to use to help get around town during construction. And I guess with that, we'll open it to questions.
Well, I hope that during the closures, I see you had the chicken wings, but we need to really take in consideration Hot August nights and street vibrations. So I hope that you're working with those two groups also on this. I'm very tickled to death to see the artwork and stuff going into the bridges and the colors. I've seen some of the color already, and it really looks good, and I love the decorations you're putting up. I've seen them in Carson City, and I thought y'all were just showing favoritism to my buddy, the mayor down in Carson City, but they really look good and nice, and the landscaping really helps our city look good, so thank y'all very much. Yes, Mr. President.
Just one question, because I do, same compliment on the artwork, but it's already starting to get graffitied, the one on the mill. I noticed today on Mill Street that there's graffiti all over the artwork there. Does NDOT have a plan? Because that issue has come back to us several times. Is there graffiti coating on this artwork, and what's the plan to eradicate the graffiti there? So, I mean, you had this beautiful piece, and then it was graffitied right on front of that piece on the Mill Street exit there.
Come join the conversation, young lady. Introduce yourself for the record.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. My name is Lucy Joyce. I'm the Landscape Architecture Supervisor for NDOT. To answer your question, I just learned about the graffiti on the Mill Street wall.
That's terrible.
Yes, Granite Construction has plans to, they'll be sandblasting that. It's a rusted metal, and one of the reasons we used rusted metal was because graffiti usually can't make a strong contact with it. And so once it's power washed or sandblasted, then that will be removed and the rust rebuilds again and creates that same sort of weathered steel finish. The objects that we showed you on this project, they will either be that rusted weathered steel, or they will have an anti-graffiti coating on them. And we know that graffiti is a problem. I work with the graffiti enforcement team of Washoe County to try to figure out ways to combat that.
Yeah, I mean, because that hasn't even been up very long.
No,
So, and it
it's
got
not.
tagged already, so tragic. It's
Mr.
very
Isaac.
hard.
Oops, excuse me, Ms. Fred, you there?
No, it's okay.
Mr. Isaac.
Yeah, I think you guys have done a great job so far. The first phase went really well. I'm very happy. And you started early this year because of the weather, so you have to redo all the schedules, right? You probably had them all dialed in. So when is is anticipated right now for the Center Street on-ramp? You have a date for when it's going to be closed, or you're still working that out for the Center Street on-ramp?
Yeah, we're still currently working that out. Like I mentioned, we're coordinating with the city and the businesses and the special events and all the moving parts that go along with that to find the window that's, let's call it least impactful. I don't think there's ever a time where,
Right.
everyone's going to say, yeah, that doesn't.
Otherwise, we
impact
wouldn't need a
me.
freeway, right?
Exactly. So right now, we've talked about after the 4th of July. I think we'll have the opportunity to do that prior to that if our construction proceeds as we would like it to. Obviously, what we'd like to do is the earlier the better and get that completed before some of the larger events, the Hot August nights and those type of things. Ideally, we've got all those ramps open and traffic switched back onto the proper side of the road prior to hot August nights. It's maybe a stretch goal, but we're certainly, understand the impacts to the community, and we're doing what we can to get in, get out, and move on to the next one.
Yeah, I think that ramp metering is working well, too. People seem to really be working, you can get on a lot easier onto the freeway, so I'm glad those are going to be permanent, because I think that helps a lot. And then when are you going to bring back the landscaping plan to us? Not the arts, but the actual landscaping. Is that going to come back to the city council, or?
I would have to leave that up to Jeff to answer that.
And Jeff's begging for some backup.
Yeah.
I believe that the other stakeholders have received those plans. If you have not received the plans, then we will get those to you as soon as possible. I believe Charla Honey and Maureen McKissick received those. We actually just on Friday were able to finalize those plans to have them within budget. So we've sort of been working on that over the last several months because we originally were substantially over budget. So we were trying to work together to figure out how we could provide everything that we had told the stakeholders and the public that we would be able to do. And we feel that we're at that point now.
So what's the plan for the Robb Drive? Still,
Robb Drive is still what we had agreed to. It will have that monument there, and that is the only area that we will have new irrigation and new trees and planting around that monument.
so that will have irrigation now?
It will.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank y'all very much. Appreciate it. All right. All right, let's go to item F1. Madam Secretary, of all the notices been sent.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, proper notice was given. We received 17 emails in opposition to this, and I have 2.
What were those numbers again?
17.
17.
Okay. Beth DeMitt?
Good afternoon. I'm Bev Dummett. I live in Verdi, across the street from where this project is supposed to be built. And I understand that you folks are here to do a rezoning. And I talked to somebody, unfortunately I don't remember who, that said it was just sort of like, stamp, rubber stamp, not to worry, right? So on the off chance that it wasn't, I'm here to let you know that I have a number of concerns, one of which has to do with water and sewage out there. As you well know, Verdi, River Oaks Homeowners Association, and all the folks in Verdi have had trouble with water and sewage. So this new developer, whoever he or she may be, I would like them to know that they're running into trouble and they'll need some help. The other thing is the developer, I'd like to know if he's local. It really worries me to hear that it's West Meadows Investment, and I looked it up online, and it's someplace in Florida. I would like to see and talk to this person live and in person. The other thing my concerns about building on the side of Highway 40 is my backyard and several people here have gotten flooded. And so flooding is a very major issue for me. If you're going to build on the other side, you better make sure that those drainage things go elsewhere besides my backyard. Third, a lot of us use and are used to hunting, fishing, hiking in those hills back there, so public access is vitally important to all of us. Fourth, if you're going to have single-family dwellings that are like one story, fine. I don't have a problem with that. If you have high rises and you're going to cut my view, I'm going to raise whatever hell I can raise. The other thing is, the developers seem to have had carte blanche. Our developer left after a year, and we ran into all kinds of problems after they left. So if we're going to have developers work that land, I'd like to see their feet being held to the fire for longer than a year, because it takes at least that long and then some to find some of the problems that are going to come up in the community. Sixth or seventh on my list. Washoe County and the city of Reno, I understood that there was supposed to be an attempt to eliminate islands. And with this project, what you're doing is isolating the island that is Washoe County across the road from where I am, and creating more of a encompassing of Reno, but we're not included. So it's a voting issue as far as I'm concerned. It's like, I'm not able to vote for you all, but I can vote for the Washoe County folks. So, let's see. I think that's all.
Okay. Thank you very much. George King?
It's my good neighbor Bev that just spoke. She's across the street from me. I have lived in River Oak, formerly Glen Meadows, for 23 years. One of the issues that I have, or the principal issue that I have, is water. The street that I live on is on the far east side.
Sir, give us your name for the record.
I'm sorry. My name is George King.
Okay, thank you.
I live on Stone Ridge Drive. It intersects with Stone Crest, I believe. In any event, it's at the far east side of Verdi Meadows, River Oak. We're in a Zone A floodplain. That floodplain comes down from Peavine Mountain. During the flood of '97, I argued with the FEMA people that came in that the Truckee River did not come up to flood my property. I'm well above the Truckee River. I could not get any relief from the requirement that I carry flood insurance. All of the people that live along the street that runs parallel to a drainage ditch coming off the proposed property are required to have flood insurance. My issue would be if you allow the construction of homes in the considered area, formerly Bull Creek Ranch, the water would not be absorbed into the ground as it is today. It would sheet off and run down that ditch. If you don't make some requirement that that ditch be improved to run off to the Truckee River, the people downstream from that ditch would be impacted by flood waters. So there should be something done. I don't expect that you'll deny development of the property, but I would hope that you would do something to ameliorate that, to lessen the impact of flood coming off of that newly developed property. The other issue on the list is, of course, additional traffic. Wells Manufacturing, which is just west of our development, has closed. There were 300 plus employees there. At 3 p.m., it was almost impossible to make a left turn off of Highway 40 into River Oak because of the great traffic coming from Wells Manufacturing. If you're going to put 150 homes across the street from River Oak, you're going to increase that traffic once again. So at certain times of the day, if you don't have some control measures in place, I'm not talking about streetlights, but roundabouts or whatever, however you want to do that,
Okay,
we will all be impacted by that.
all right.
Thirdly-
Now, have you wound, is this your last point?
I
Because
have
you're
a
over your
last
time.
point, yes.
Okay.
I have a last point. I doubt seriously if the developer is going to inform the purchasers of those properties that are going to be built on that property that their water will stink.
Thank you very much, sir.
It smells of sulfur dioxide due to the well that will be servicing those properties.
Thank you very
It
much.
stinks in my house now.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, have no other public comment. Bring it back to the table for discussion. Mr. Isaac?
I have a couple questions on the timing of this, because I just want to clear up for the public record. We have had a number of people who've been opposed to this. And I understand in our staff report, it just says that we're just rolling over what the county had, and when we annexed it, it comes over under that zoning, correct?
Vern Close, Senior Planner. Yes, that's correct.
Now, when it came over to us, in doing my work on this, the maps that were presented to council when we did this showed this as low-density suburban and general rural.
That was the map that was attached to the annexation ordinance, I believe.
I believe so, yes.
This, let me give you a little history here. In January of 2001, the county approved essentially the same project that the city approved in 2003, which is the Bull Creek, River Pines, Canyon Ranch Estates on this property. Sorry for the smallness of this map, but this is the site right here. And when the county approved the project, the zoning on the site was, and I have to get their acronyms correctly, this remained as general rural and open space, these areas around the edges in green and dark green. The pink area was essentially our SF-15, and then the lighter pink area was the LLR1 area. So that's the master plan and zoning of the property before it came into the city. And I verified this map that that was the area plan in place when the property was annexed into the city. So those would be the zoning conversions that are contained in the staff report.
Let me stop you right there, but this wasn't the map that was presented to council when we did annexation.
That wasn't the map that was presented to council, no. It was basically not correctly characterized in the annexation ordinance.
Okay.
Subsequent to the annexation, there was a subdivision of the name that's on this report that was approved, and in that the Bull Creek, Canyon Pines, River Pines, Canyon Ranch Estates, a part of that, and was through a public hearing process, that the zoning was clarified essentially as I just discussed. So in the staff report for that subdivision, it was clarified what the zoning should have been when it was annexed. And that's what the zoning was when it was annexed. It was just incorrectly characterized in the annexation ordinance. So through the public hearing process, when the project came through again for approval in the city of the subdivision, it was clarified what the zoning of the property was, which is identical to what the ordinance is before you today. And what we did, because it has been 8 or 9 years since that was done and an ordinance was never actually run, we decided it would be appropriate to run this as a public hearing again, notice everybody so that we could bring this all out through the public hearing process as to how the zoning came to be on this property. So the zoning has been the same essentially as in the ordinance since 2001 when the county approved their project Then when it annexed in the city, it did not change, it just was incorrectly characterized. And then a year later, when we did the project, the zoning was clarified through that public hearing process. So that's kind of how we got to where we are.
But our ordinance shows the old, I mean, that's what we have to change, right? They're asking for this change.
Our zoning map shows the whole property as zoned UT 40, which is not correct either. This is,
Well, let me ask a different question. If I was going to buy a house across the street and I wanted to look up, do my due diligence, what map would I see from the city or from the county about what was going to go on across the street?
this is what you would see from the city. It would show it as being zoned UT 40.
So, but we're telling everybody, sorry, we were wrong, basically.
No, I think what we're saying is we're trying to correct the situation that should have been, the ordinance or the maps and the ordinances should have all been done 8 or 9 years ago when it actually occurred, instead of it essentially fell through the cracks. And it was not properly done, and that's why we're here. This happens from time to time. About 2 years ago, a project called Evans Creek Estates down in the southwest had the same sort of situation. It was done under resolution of intent. That's why we don't do that anymore. And the people were coming in for building permits, and their zoning had not been changed because the ordinance had not been run on that. So this essentially corrects what should have been done 8 years ago.
So if they met all the conditions from the December 2nd Planning Commission, there were 16 conditions?
The conditions were placed on the tentative map. This was not a resolution of intent zoning. It was in the staff report. They just clarified what the zoning was supposed to be based on what happened in the county when it was annexed into the city. And this clarified the acreages and locations of the various zoning classifications on the property.
Yeah, I don't know whether we can answer this now, but I'd like to hear from legal where we're sticking out on this one.
Legal can speak for themselves, but
I don't know if they're ready today, but.
I ran this by them, and that was because in 2003, when we annexed property, we had a conversion chart in the ordinance that converted the county zoning master plan to the city zoning, and that's what we had in place. So when it was annexed, it automatically changed to the city zoning. It was just incorrectly characterized for a portion of it in the annexation ordinance.
And I understand that. So someone made a mistake, whether it was the county not getting the maps to us in an appropriate amount of time, the applicant not being here when we annexed it to say those maps are wrong, or us overlooking it and not having it right. If someone across the street says, you know, that's not, I bought my house under these other conditions, I just don't know where we are. So if that happens, where are we?
Well, again, I think at this point, if someone did that in the past, that's a valid question. But from this, we're trying to clarify and
So that was
fix
some of the emails I
situation.
got. I wouldn't have bought this house if I'd have known that's what the zoning was. And you just told me anything they looked up, this is what they would see what the zoning was across the street. So I just don't know where we are.
But Dave, I mean, they could, even if there wasn't this mistake made, there's no guarantee when you purchase a house that the property across the street is going to remain zoned what it was when you purchased it. Anyone can apply for a change in zoning at any time.
I agree.
I mean, so there's no guarantee. I mean, it could have been zoned open space.
I don't disagree, but are we going through, is this the same step we would do? Usually it'd be a 6 o'clock hearing or something where
Well, if it was
people could
appealed.
come down here so what would they appeal today to have a 6 o'clock hearing? If we approve this today, who could appeal?
Well,
and
no,
say-
I mean, it would have had to,
Exactly. So what process would have to happen if it was a new application to come forward with the rezoning? What would have had to happen? Because I sort of think
If
that's.
it was a new application for rezoning, it would go to the planning commission. They would make the recommendation to you, and then it would come to the city council, because zonings always come to the city council. And then if someone wanted to appeal what the planning commission recommended, they would appeal it to you. If they didn't, it would be at a 12:15 hearing, or if appealed at a 6 o'clock hearing. Also, I'd like to point out, this is what the master plan shows on the site, which is essentially identical to the outlines of the county master plan and zoning. Again, this just shows that there's an inconsistency. The zoning on the side is not consistent with the master plan either at this point, so.
Yeah, I'm saying that there's a lot of something going on here, and I don't know which way to go. We could also say, let's just go back to where it was and start from scratch. If that's what the council approved when we annexed the property, I don't know how it could be changed without council approval. And that's what we're doing today.
That was the point of bringing it back as a
Right.
public hearing.
But in the
for
meantime, there's been tentative maps approved and all that other stuff. I'm just throwing those questions out. I could use any other comments or help on this one.
All the land we're talking about is the yellow.
The land that's going to be rezoned is in the yellow, yes, that's correct.
All of that.
All of this and this.
How about across the street?
Nothing across the street. It's the area that's bound in this area right there. That's the
green area's been,
the green area is not changing. That's staying
General
as it
rural, right?
was, general rural. Well, UT 40 is what it is. The only real discrepancy is the strip of, I mean, as far as what was approved with the zoning ordinance, for the annexation ordinance. Is the yellow strip on the bottom of the map there. That's the area that, this was UT 40, this was LLR 1, and this would be the area that would go to SF 15, and that was the area that was not on the annexation ordinance.
Mr. Guston?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly understand the confusion and the line of questioning from Councilman Ayazi, because I'm kind of perplexed also. But what I wanted to just say, Vern, I know we're only talking about zoning here, but in response to a couple of the public comments, I mean, it's a wide breadth of information that they asked about, from sewer to high-rise to local builder to creating an island, flood insurance, et cetera, et cetera. But it might behoove us right now to just take a couple minutes to explain that that's not what we're talking about today, and how when the plan comes together and they ask for the permits, how that will go, and how those people then can have their input and what can be said about what they talked about today. So I understand we're two different things here, zoning versus all these other elements, but just a brief comment from you to those public speakers I think might help a little.
Certainly. If the council so desires to approve the zoning today, any project that would be constructed on the site would come back as a public hearing before the Planning Commission as a tentative map in its current zoning. They could come in and request a master plan amendment, a zone change, but any of those things would require a public hearing. Once we get to a specific project, such as a tentative map, all the issues related to traffic, sewer, water, drainage, anything related to the operations and construction of, access to open space, those sorts of things would all be addressed during the tentative map process. And everyone that got noticed for this zone change would get noticed for the tentative map.
And that's what I wanted to say, that'll come back. And the one thing that, this is LLR 1, and so the likelihood that it's single family, or excuse me, single level or two levels.
It's 1 and 2 story
One and
buildings
two-story
are
buildings.
what are allowed in SF 15 and LLR 1.
Okay,
yes.
that's what I wanted. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's pretty much it.
They would have to change the zoning to be able to build taller structures and make it more dense.
And so in the yellow, they're wanting to build more.
Well, when it was originally approved, it was a cluster development, and the higher density was along the yellow portions, but it did extend into the green portions, and then the lots got bigger as they fanned out to the edges. So it was done under a cluster development, which allows you, as long as you have the same number of units, you can modify the lot sizes.
Okay. Mr. Isaac?
So on follow up on that then, you said that what the public speakers did, that comes through the tentative map process, but we've already approved the tentative map.
But the tentative map that was on it was approved in 2003 and has expired.
No, it has expired, so they have to
Yes.
come back with a whole
Yes.
new tentative map. Okay.
Yes, there are no, this is still the same parcel, and they would have had to record a map at that time within 2 years.
So to do anything on this property now, they still have to come through a big process about going through all that.
They would have to come back through a public hearing process, yes.
Okay. All right, any other discussion, any other questions? Mr. Azzi, you want to give me a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to clear it up for the public. I know people are watching now. I can respond to them that when the tentative maps come through again, there's no entitlements on this property right now except zoning, so that anything that comes forward will be in the public process, and they'll all have a chance to talk about water and sewer and traffic and all that stuff.
That's correct.
Okay. I'll make a motion to accept staff recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Have a second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Ordinance F11.
Bill number 6788, an ordinance to amend Title 18, Chapter 18.08 of the Reno Municipal Code entitled Zoning Rezoning a 104.52 acre site located along the north side of Old US 40, 1850 US 40, 1 mile west of its intersection with I-80 from UT 40 on 104.52 acres to 78.08 acres of LLR 1 large lot residential 1 acre and 26.44 acres of SF 15 single family residential 15,000 square feet. The other matters properly relating thereto.
Move to refer.
Have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item G1, ordinance adoption.
This is ordinance number 6224, an ordinance to amend Title 12, Chapter 12.16 of the Reno Municipal Code entitled Public Works and Utilities, Chapter 12.16 Sewer Service Division 6, Billing, Collection, and Enforcement of Sewer User Charges by amending Section 12.16.395, appeals to the Administrative Hearing Officer, together with other matters properly relating there.
Move to adopt.
Have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. This time we'll go to resolutions. Item H1.
Resolution number 7662, resolution granting community pride grant funds to the Wooster High School boosters for 12 students to attend the Discovery Student Adventure Education Trip to Washington, D.C. in June 2012 in the amount of $3,000.
Have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item H2.
Resolution number 7663, resolution granting community pride grant funds to the Wooster High School boosters for the Campus Biggest Loser program to purchase program materials and incentive awards for students participants in the amount of $1,000.
Have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item H3.
Resolution number 7664, resolution accepting streets, G. Curdy Ranch, Unit 2, that's case number LDC 06-00423.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item H4.
Resolution number 7665, resolution accepting streets, G. Curdy Ranch, Unit 3, FNL 09-00002.
Have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item H5.
Resolution number 7666, resolution accepting streets, G. Curdy Ranch, Unit 4, FNL 09-00006.
Have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item H6.
Resolution number 7667, resolution accepting streets, G. Curdy Ranch, Unit 5, case number FNL 10-00002.
Have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item H7.
Resolution number 7668, resolution accepting streets, amended portion of University Heights, Unit 2, Phase 5.
Have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item H8.
Resolution number 7669, resolution approving the cost to be assessed in the City of Reno, Nevada, 2011 Special Assessment District Number 1, and ordering the city engineer to prepare and submit a preliminary assessment roll.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second, all in favor say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item H9.
Resolution number 7670, resolution to reapportion the assessments for the City of Reno, Nevada, 2007 Special Assessment District Number 1, reapportionment number 4 for Southeast Reno.
Just a question on this one. What is this for? There was nothing in the original, Steve, like the last one.
Steve Hardesty, Public Works. Councilwoman Peraza, this is for a property that split. So what it did is you had two parcels, and we have to go through the reapportionment method to assign a portion of the assessment to each parcel.
Okay, is it for a street? What's
Oh,
it
no,
for?
it's for actual parcel. The property owners that are adjacent to the sidewalk that we repaired back in 2007.
Okay, what area is this for, Steve?
It's the corners of Cheney and Wilson.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I had. Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Move to adopt.
Have a second? Have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, if I may
Yes,
just
sir.
interject. Steve, we go back to the last one. I'm just curious, because that was the Westfield Village was included in part of this assessment, the cost, is it, what not?
No, sir, that's, the original one, yes.
Original one?
Yeah,
And-
H8.
And
Yes,
just
sir.
maybe off the top of your head, we know what we went through over there in terms of explaining and again, getting people to cooperate, and they were very cooperative after they understood what was going on. Do you have any idea of what the percentage, the cost differed from the original presentation we made? Because they're always less when they come back after the original assessment. Do you have any idea, or share that with me when you can then?
When we come back on the 14th with fixing the time resolution,
Okay.
I'll be able to give you an idea of how much we improved it, because right now we're just finalizing that last section. So we'll have the roll, basically we'll have the roll ready to go on the 13th, I believe.
Because that was obviously the big question about it, and once we got into it, you could see where it was going to be a lot less, and people were less apprehensive. So I just want to see that. We'll see it on the 14th. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Now we'll go to item I. I1 and I2 have been pulled, but we are going to have discussion. Anybody wish to speak on item I1 or I2? If you'd fill out a form later and identify yourself for the record.
You got it. My name is Bob Dog, DAWG. Mayor, council members, thanks for hearing me. Here just to speak on a couple concerns I got in regards to this actual ordinance. As far as the ordinance reads and keeping things out of the people under the age of 18's eye and stuff, I'm totally in agreement for it 100%. Understand completely about it that way. Some of the things that I don't really completely understand is some of the categories that were kind of being proposed to be put in with, like some of the cabaret clubs, escort services, gambling, bars, things of that nature. We're not in those categories. I moved here probably 15 years ago in the city of Reno. Love the city of Reno, been helping build it for years. I've been a pillar, I think, in this community for a while. Helped raise probably in the neighborhood over $200,000 for different charities in this area, which you all know I've been here before. Helping out different fallen soldiers' families and so on and so forth. Always been about the city and always been about the uprising and upbuilding of this city. I see all the time up and down our streets since I've been into business, all these different businesses that are empty. There's nobody there anymore. We just have vacant buildings all over. We're trying to build downtown Reno, get more tourist attraction and get more people to come to this community, but it seems like we lose focus on filling these vacant properties. Some of the things that we do as far as in my business is a lot off from where I've been since I've been here in Nevada. I started off here 15 years ago. I became a plumber. I was a plumber for over 15 years. Construction industry fell out. I was a glass blower on the side. It was something that I did. It was a complete hobby and a complete passion of mine, and something that actually kind of paid for the trips for me and my wife to actually enjoy our vacation time. That now has in turn changed to where I'm no longer a plumber, and I became a full-time glass blower, so my hobby has become my career. I then in turn opened up a establishment located 820 South Virginia, which is Twisted Minds. We're Reno's only live glass blowing studio. There's not another one in town. And I mean, we do things outside of just the typical pipes and everything that everyone's talking about, from candle votives, urns, rings, pendants, shot glasses, goblets, jars, wedding cake toppers, wine bottle stoppers, hand-sculpted figurines, spiders, animals. I mean, you name it. We're all over the place as far as things that we do in the studio. We're also a huge supporter of all of Reno's local artists. We have one huge gallery down there of all original paintings, oils, pastels, acrylics, charcoals, you name it, of all local artists, all original pieces that we sell to try to help support local art community. We're a huge supporter of the downtown art walk as well as Midtown. We bring a lot of different events and stuff to the venue as far as the streets to try and bring more people to the community. I feel that some of the businesses, and I can't speak for all the businesses, but some of the businesses, Melting Pot, Art Dogs, and myself, we bring more to the community than some of the people that we're being classified as. I agree wholeheartedly when people are going up to these counters in downtown Reno and buying a pack of M&Ms and a pipe or something along that lines, it's out of line. I agree with that 100%. I just think that some of us are being put into a classification that we don't deserve to be in. I'm doing this as a trade. I'm doing this to survive, stay off unemployment, keep on putting food on the table for me, my wife, and my family. This is something I do day in, day out. Every day I'm happy to go to my job. I'm happy to be able to fire up the glass torch and be able to create and sculpt art every day. When this all got proposed to me, it just seemed like another ordinance to keep things out of the children's eye. I was all for it, 100%. The more that I dug into stuff and kind of investigated some of the things, I think there's some things that are just a little bit out of text for this proposal.
Thank you for your input, and we'll take that in consideration as we look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing me.
And congratulations on keeping that beard with all that glass blowing.
Yeah. How many times have you singed that, baby? Oh, come on. All right. Anybody else wish to speak on this item?
Good afternoon, Mayor Cashel and City Council members. My name is Monique Barron. I am the co-owner of the Melting Pot World Emporium. We are a local business, and we have been in business for 16 years. My husband is away on a business buying trip, and so he has sent me a text, which I'd like to read on his behalf, and then I will present my presentation. So he says his name is Eric Barron. He's the co-owner of the Melting Pot World Emporium, located at 1049 South Virginia Street. He's presently out of town on a business purchasing trip. In my absence, I would like it to be noted that I'm very disturbed by the idea that my 16-year-old business could now be lumped into some sort of new adult industry category that demands even more taxation on us. Mandatory signs in my front window, federal background checks, and what have you. We are a boutique and a retail store. We carry clothing, jewelry, home decor, spiritual items, artwork, locally and internationally handcrafted items, and so on. Our store also has a small room where we sell hookahs, rolling papers, hand-blown glass, tobacco pipes, and such. The whole store is very tastefully done, and the pipe room is no different, just another section of our store. But it is always and has been 18 years and over, and we've always stated that at the entrance. The Melting Pot is a small, independently, locally owned business, and we believe that we contribute substantially to the good of our local community. We have been in business for, like I said, 16 years. We pride ourselves in our community outreach and support in the way of donations, gift certificates, raffle prizes for people with needs ranging in the arts to people with extreme medical expenses. We have done fashion shows to support local sports organizations and cancer benefits. We feel this tax unfairly lumps our store, primarily a high-end clothing boutique, with other entertainment enterprises. We feel that this category is incorrect for what we do. And I'm here to, speak represent our store. My managers are here as well because they care about our store and how we are represented in the community.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Can I ask a question, because what I'm not hearing is specifics about, and for Mr. Dog, what specifically in the ordinance do you object to? Because what staff, and I guess I'd call Alex up before we have this hearing next week, what staff is recommending is that there be a screening point that this stuff not be sold out in the open. And I understand 18 years old, but there's no limit on this spice, this drug paraphernalia, anything else. Anybody can go into that store regardless of how old they are. So I'm
Right.
looking for specifics on the ordinance of what you have concerns
We're
with.
opposed to adding the drug paraphernalia ordinance to the municipal code entitled Privileges, License Permits, and Franchises. What we sell is legal, and it always has been. So that's why we're here. We're not doing anything illegal. We're not, we're not selling Bath. So I don't know. Everything we sell is legal, and so I'm not sure.
So you're
what we're
opposed to
doing.
screening the paraphernalia in an area. Is that what you're testifying to today?
Well, I feel like this tax that supposedly is wanting, this extra monetary tax that we need to pay to lump us in with these, like the cabaret and the gaming and those other, I just don't feel like that's fair. Like, I don't think we should be lumped in with that category. I mean, we're completely different from gaming, cabaret, that's not what we are. I mean, the pipe room that we have is a very minuscule, small part of what we do and have done. I mean, we have customers from 5 to 75. Grandma's coming in with their grandkids, and I don't want to put a sign in my window that says, supposed paraphernalia, that just doesn't feel right or comfortable. I mean, we're kind of a hub in the community of Reno. I mean, a lot of people shop our store, and I don't know. That just doesn't feel right to have to be lumped into that
Okay,
category.
we'll take that into consideration when we're looking at this. Mr. Woodley, you have anything to say at this time? And you could get with it. You had another question?
I'd like to hear about this tax issue, but Mr. Mayor, we have regulations on liquor stores, privilege licenses, gaming.
Right.
I mean, gaming is highly regulated. You have to be 21. There's signs that are posted in gaming establishments. I mean, to have no regulation, I mean, based on this testimony, that anybody could walk in, a grandchild, and see this type of sales. I mean, we've had a lot of concerns about this from the public, and that's why it's coming before us. But I'd like, Alex, for you to address that as far as what's being proposed in this ordinance.
Yes, ma'am. Alex Woodley, Code Enforcement Manager for the city. The biggest issues in the ordinance is, number one, that there cannot be sales to minors under the age of 18. Number two, that said items be screened from anyone under the age of 18. And number three, there is signage, but the signage used to say specific language, but in our meeting with business owners, we changed the signage to just say no one under the age of 18 can be in this area. That's what the signage says. As far as the privilege license costs, we agreed to a cost fee of $165 a quarter, which is approximately $55 a month. And the items that are being sold, their prices range from $10 per item to $175 per item. So we didn't think that would be excessive for $55 a month. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Alex, thanks for that explanation. I mean, much of this derived from a Saturday that Alex and I spent in my ward on a cleanup day, and there was a convenience type store not 50 yards from a park where children play in central Reno. And the pipes were in immediate display as you walked in the door and available without any kind of restrictions. So this has been a long time in development. And while there may be some discomfort that you have, those of you who are more responsible in how you run your business, we have to develop ordinance and regulations that cover the entire gamut for businesses that aren't as responsible. And we can't isolate those who do it right from those who do it wrong. It's a category of businesses that we have to regulate.
Okay. Yes.
Alex, I do have one more question, because the other thing I think that they're discussing is the privilege, but also the work card. Who would be required to have a work card now?
At this point, sir, the requirement for the work card would be the owner and the individual selling the items.
So pretty much everybody who works at a store.
The responsible person, because there's a section in there that states that they may have a clerk who's under 18, and they obviously can't sell the items, but the person who's in charge of the store at the time.
So I think what I'm hearing, and that's all, Alex, so thank you.
Thank you, sir.
For that clarification. What I'm hearing is, and it's usually the people who do the right thing are the ones who get hurt the most. But that's what I see, is these people haven't had any complaints, any problems, and they're gonna be penalized, although $55 a month doesn't seem hard to some people. I think for other people, it's a lot of money. I don't care how big your business is or how small. And it's, what I heard Mr. Dog say, it's just the thought that he has to be put into a privileged license as though what they're doing is illegal. So I don't know if we take the first step and just do, they're required to be screened and see what that does. And then the next step would be, okay, that's not working, it's still offensive, then we start taking that next step. I know it's gonna come back in a workshop, but off the top of my head, those are what I'm thinking about. Or maybe if the store is already here, they get grandfathered in. So they don't have to do, unless they get, just like we were saying with bars, if they get hit a couple times with selling to underage, then we're going to step up the penalties for them. So the same thing can happen here. If you sell to people underage after 2 or 3 times, more penalties get incurred. So we're always penalizing the good people along with the bad people with no ramp up. That's what I personally think should happen.
Well, we'll be discussing this again, taking action on items in the future, but I'm just tickled to death you didn't come back with the age of 21. Because that's what gaming license have to have, is the age of 21 and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different stuff. But I understand where they're coming from, too. All right. Did you? No, you have to come up to the microphone if you want to speak.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that we're on the same page, and it's very clear that this is very separate from our store, that our space that we sell the pipes from is very separate from the rest of our store. You know, it's 90% the rest of the store and 10%, which is very enclosed in its own space, and there's a sign stated. So, I mean, we keep it very separate. We don't display anything in our windows or anything. I just want to make sure that we're clear.
We'll be thorough and looking at them before we'll all be getting together.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Tracy Chase, Reno City Attorney's Office. We will just put this on an agenda for an introduction once we have an opportunity to do the little bit of legal research we need, so you don't even need a motion to continue.
Okay. All right, item J2.
You still need to vote on that motion, Mr. Mayor?
Excuse me, huh?
Still need to vote on a motion to continue?
No, we don't need a motion to continue. Item J2, community development. Wait a minute. We just do J2? Yeah.
Move to approve, Mr. Mayor?
Have a motion, do I have a second? Have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item J3.
Move to approve, Mr. Mayor?
Have a motion, do I have a second? Have a second. All in favor, say no. All in favor, say aye.
We just see if we're awake, Mr.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item J4. Oops, excuse me, that is at 4 o'clock. That's at 4 o'clock. Item J6, Ms. Edrup. 2 o'clock, yes. Isn't it 2 o'clock? No, Jesus, okay. All right, J9.
For the record, Maureen McKissick, City Manager's Office, and Michelle Hobbs, Reno Fire Department. The item before you this afternoon is approval of a 2012 SAFER grant. Staff was before you multiple times in 2011. We discussed the SAFER program guidance, the limitations, and the purpose. The 2012 program is essentially the same. So we have strict prohibitions against layoffs. We have also one change since the staff report was published. We are now seeking 24 positions, not 36. And we wanted to point that out on the record. That appears on page 2 of your staff report, and that has been changed since the staff report was written. And we are available for any questions.
All right.
What happens, Maureen, specifically if the county moves forward with the deconsolidation and the status of this grant?
Do you want to take that?
Is this prior to or?
Actually, the grant application is due on Friday. It's due on the 24th. The program guidance states that the Department of Homeland Security will begin awarding in May. So they may award after May. It's going to be a rolling schedule as it was with the last round, but because of the timelines and because we are now currently still consolidated, we will be applying as a consolidated fire department. Should we go forward with deconsolidation after July 1st, we foresee that we would be unable to accept the grant. But you will have 90 days after notification to make that decision. So it will come back to you in a time frame in which that will be a fact rather than a speculation as it is now.
So you're doing it as a joint, but is there a way to do it individually?
The only
For the Reno Fire
opportunity
Department.
for this time period, for this round of SAFERs, the answer would be no. There's going to be another funding round, we're told, in July. And that would be the opportunity if we want to submit as the sole department to do an application on that basis.
At that point in time, though, if we deconsolidate, we'll probably be in default of the current SAFER grant.
For the record, Michelle Hobbs, Admin Services Manager, Reno Fire. Potentially correct, Councilman. The existing grant we have right now has the same provision as this one, that there will be no layoffs. However, with the potential of deconsolidation, we still don't know at this point in time whether or not we're going to have employees transfer over to the new fire department, if they're going to separate to pursue other options. We just don't know that right now. If we do issue any layoff notice, any one layoff notice, because of the potential of deconsolidation, we will be in default of the current grant.
And that would affect our ability to get any other grants, I would assume.
We have been in contact with DHS numerous times regarding our situation, and they have told us that we are very unique in this situation. From the time we originally came to you to apply for the initial 10 positions on the SAFER grant we have now, that we were sort of setting the stage for them. They've never seen this before. So there is a potential that we may be able to get a waiver, but that is still going to be dependent upon how the whole deconsolidation process goes, if it still goes down that road.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
How much money are we talking with the combined 24 positions in the amount of
Okay,
money?
now I can give you the exact dollar amount, $5,138,256.
So essentially, we would be losing over $5 million in federal funds and 24 positions if the county decided to move forward with deconsolidation. Not sure how that makes sense, Mr. Mayor.
But that's presuming that the grant is awarded, which we don't know yet.
So, but we were under the old grant, correct?
Under the existing grant we have right now for the 2010 SAFER, that funds 10 positions. So that's approximately $1 million if that grant were to not continue past deconsolidation.
And so, but based on our unemployment and some other numbers, we're pretty competitive for this grant.
Yes, we think that due to extenuating circumstances, we'd be well positioned. And I think reducing the ask from 36 to 24 positions would also be in our favor.
But if they go through, if they go through with the deconsolidation or the divorce, we'd probably want to go after the 36.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor?
Well, we wouldn't be eligible for this draft.
No.
For this round.
We need to apply.
In this round, is the county able to also have an application in?
No.
The county itself does not have any firefighting employees right now. Truckee Meadows does not, and they have not laid anybody off. This round would be for those positions that have been laid off 2008 through right now, 2010 through the date of the application closing on Friday. So the county has not laid off any employees. They could not apply under this grant right now.
Okay. Mr. Azzi?
You keep saying that we're consolidated, but we're not really consolidated. It's just a contract, correct?
Do you want to say that?
Correct. We have an existing interlocal agreement with Truckee Meadows. We are consolidated fire department in regards to staffing, in regards to budget, in regards to the application for the grant.
I mean, they're all Reno Fire Department employees.
Absolutely. Every single employee is a Reno Fire Department employee.
And so if they grant in May, that would be as of that day is what we'd have to maintain, or we have to maintain as of, what's the day that they pick?
We actually had the same situation come up with the grant where we were awarded for the 10 safer positions. We had to give them our staffing requirement or base at that day, but then explain the date of award, the differences in the positions potentially in the date of award. We were awarded our grant last year prior to the layoffs that we had to enact. We were allowed to readjust our base staffing level after that point in time upon the date that we actually started to draw funds, as it were, for the grant.
So in essence, the award, it's the date of the award is what we have to keep. So if that's how many, let's say it's 100 firefighters at the date of the award. If the award isn't done until June or July, I'm going to take the worst case scenario, the county moves away on July 1st. When will the layoffs happen from the fire department? Or hopefully all the transfers would have to happen before then,
They would have to happen at the end of the interlocal agreement, June the 30th.
or before. They're going to have to happen before. And that's, I think, has to come back to us, because we're going to have to start making some decisions before July 1st, because it takes so long to lay someone off. We can't send out the notices on July 1st. When would we send out the notices?
For the record, Mike Hernandez, the county is going to wait until approximately a month to a month and a half prior to their startup date. And as we understand, we've had in excess of 60 applicants from our department that have applied. We know that they have tendered offers to 5 existing TM employees. Now, whether those employees accept those positions or not, what we are going to do, unfortunately, is we're going to have to build from the worst case scenario up as we build our budget. So as we build our budget starting next month, actually this month, we will build as if we were going to be operating on a $30 million budget and work backwards in terms of staffing, et cetera. So at some point, we're going to...
But legally, when do we have to send out the notice so that June 30th would be their last day of work?
In speaking with Renee Rudges from HR, as we've been talking about the potential of deconsolidation, in order to comply with civil service requirements and hearings and making sure bumping and all of that is met, probably the first part of April.
So the 1st of April, and would that be the number, after we send out the layoff notices, is that the number we give the federal government as to what our base staffing level is?
It would be, if we were to get an award, that would be the day of the award that we would give them that base staffing number. And then if we were to accept the award, we could adjust what our new base was from the date of award to the time of actual acceptance and drawdown.
So we'll know prior to award, we will have sent out those, I'm assuming we're going to send out our layoff notices based on worst case scenario.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to, I hope it doesn't happen. I don't want people to think we do, but I think we're going to have to send out those notices, and that may actually help us with the SAFER grants by sending out the notices prior to award.
And so those notices would go when?
The first part of April.
First part of April.
And actually, the 90-day period in which you have to accept or decline this year is going to be critical, because that will be the window of time in which we know for sure what is going to be happening.
Are we required to do like the minimum? What if we said that we think it's going to be, I know that's the minimum, but I think to be fair to everybody, if we have our plan in place, if this happens, that we send it out March, or does it have to be within that time frame? Can it be further, so people have more time to make decisions about whether the county's going to hire them or not? Are they on the layoff notice or not? I think if people know earlier, it helps them. You know, maybe not, it's going to make them feel bad, but they have more time to think about what their options are.
We can discuss that with HR and Civil Service to
Okay.
see.
Okay.
I may have missed this out of being out of the room for just a bit, but do we know how many notices we're talking about?
For the record, Mike Hernandez, Fire Chief, what we've done is we've taken the 5 Truckee Meadow stations, the 4 staffing per station, times the 3 shift, and we're looking at a minimum of 60 people. And that's worst case if no one moves over to the TM system. We'd have to also factor in our budget allocation and, of course, floaters and things like that. So I would anticipate that number going from 60 to possibly 70. And again, depending on how many employees transfer over, it could even go higher than that. But our base number is going to be 60 employees.
Okay, thank you, Chief. That's a bigger number than I had anticipated.
All right. I think we should go ahead and apply for this and get it done by Friday. So I recommend somebody make a motion. Mr. Azzi.
I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation. It doesn't hurt to apply.
All right, I have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Item J10.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. For the record, Jill Olson, Finance. As required by our agreement with the Downtown Management Group, the operator is here today to present their annual budget for 2012. They do have representatives here to answer any questions you may have. The budget, their marketing plan, and their capital improvement plan have been included in your packet, and they're here to present that plan and answer any questions you may have.
Good afternoon, Phil DeLone, Executive Director, Sales Silver Legacy, for the record. And with me is Gary Carano, General Manager, and Stephanie Lepre, Chief Financial Officer for the company. We're here to discuss the 2012-2011 results of the Reno Ballroom. The Reno Ballroom is forecasted to produce just over 30,000 convention room nights in 2012, which was an increase over the 27,000 that it was responsible for bringing downtown in 2011. Also, revenues will be up in 12 by $300,000 to $1.6 million over the $1.3 million we did in 2011, which 2011 concluded its third year of complete operation. I personally anticipate that we'll actually do better than 30,000 room nights. We are seeing a trend that the economy may be making a turnaround, and inquiries this first quarter have been better than expected, and many of these corporations, associations are seeking a short-term home. So with hard work and some luck, we should hopefully surpass our forecasted expectation. In place, we have several tools. Some are obvious, a complete website presence for the marketing of the Reno Ballroom, as well as other downtown facilities like the Reno Events Center, and of course, the sister facilities within the Silver Legacy that complement and augment the Reno Ballroom. But we have a dedicated website, renoconventions.com, which the Reno Ballroom and Reno Events Center are very well highlighted on. We have also hired this year a telemarketing firm based in Maryland that is telemarketing nationally throughout the United States for corporation and association conventions. We have also hired last year a dedicated catering sales manager who is working quite hard in bringing local social catering to downtown and the Reno Ballroom. He's done quite a good job. We have doubled the number of FAM trips coming into downtown to 6 from our typical 3. And all of those projects and efforts are promoting business into the Reno Ballroom.
Questions, anybody?
Stephanie Lepre, CFO for Silver Legacy. The budget that we presented to you or submitted to you was reviewed with the staff and also reviewed by our partners, MGM and El Dorado. We are the managing member, but we work closely with our partners to ensure everyone's on the same page and as our partner, because they absorb a third of the loss as well. So in 11, you can see that we improved on the bottom line. There was some revenue shifting from the category of food down to room rental and equipment rental, which also contributed to the improved profit margin. And then we had some savings in payroll. Really made some efforts along with, as every company is doing these days, to look at overtime policies, double backs, improvements in front of the back of the house areas, looking at our setup policies so that we're, cutting corners wherever we can to make sure that we can do whatever it takes to increase the bottom line there. So as you can see, in 2011, we made $93,000. We contributed another $150,000 to the CapEx fund to bring it up to the $500,000 per the contract. And going into 12, fairly flat, as Phil mentioned. We knew it was going to be a tough year. Citywide conventions are down. We didn't have Safari Club. There's less bowlers. There's a lot of challenges. So we're optimistic knowing what we have booked so far and then what Phil's seen from a convention booking trend. So hopefully this is, not, I wouldn't say it's conservative, but, hopefully, like he said, we'll be able to exceed it. So are there any questions on the 11 or 12?
Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the capital improvement expenditure proposal on what fund does that come from? Would that affect the profit margin at the end of the day?
No, that would come from the $500,000 that's in the sub-account that's already fully funded.
Okay.
So what we're requesting is this $39,000. We've already got the quote for the projection. We'll still do, this is not to exceed to spend. We're getting more quotes on the stages and that as based on your approval. But that would come out of the $500,000. And then we would be required to bring that up to the 500. We're required to go up to 100,000 every year in the CapEx to replenish that account. So that would be part of a 12. If there's profits, if there's not profits, then we are required to fund it out of our money.
So on the projector itself right now, you guys are renting from a third party?
We're currently renting it. Super Bowl is a good example, having the event over there. So this will improve the bottom line. It's not built into this budget because we didn't know if it was approved or not. So that should help this be even better. But we would also, we're not renting it now as much as we would like to because, it's an expense to the ballroom. So we think we can provide a better product for our customers. And if we own it, then we can rent it for 100% that would flow straight to the ballroom.
And then my other question, Mr. Mayor, on the CIP expenditures, do you have a projection, like a 5-year plan, so we don't run into the same issues we're having with the bowling stadium, with the roof? I mean, the carpet, the lanes. That's the only thing I see missing. I appreciate the report. But what are we looking at as far as expenditures on actually making sure the facility stays in good condition?
Right. From an R&M standpoint, we're on top of it. We have logs and have been it's actually in the agreement that we meet with the city, and our engineers are on the same page so that the P&M is done timely, so there's no deferred maintenance issues. I wasn't prepared to do a 5 or 10 year here, but we have had those discussions with the city as well, and we have one that we can certainly provide at another time. The only thing we're aware of is a roofing potential issue, and the only other thing on the city's budget that we both have was carpet. The rest would just be, replacement FF&E parts. So we can certainly come back with that 5 and 10 year.
For the record, Jill Olson, we have had our staff, the Public Works staff, BTS staff, working with their engineers And so they're coordinating their 5 and 10-year capital plan with our 5 and 10-year capital plan. So you'll see that all together, even in the city's budget.
Okay, any other questions? Chair will entertain a motion. Have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item J11.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item J11, Chair will entertain a motion. Have a motion, do I have a second? Have a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item J12.
Yeah, how come that wasn't in J11? What am I missing here?
Yeah, what is this?
I mean, we're at a change order already? I mean, we
For
just
the record,
approved
Kate Thomas,
J11.
Office of Management and Budget. Item J11 is a modification for the, to accept the $300,000 as the action that you requested on the 25th of January for the surcharge advisory, capital surcharge advisory subcommittee. And item J12 is us to save expenses and time and effort, partnering with an existing contract that the city has with Reno Concrete so that we can expedite the work at the city center site.
What this?
Okay. Okay.
All right, we took a vote on 12. Have a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item J13.
Thank you, Your Honor. Alex Woodley, Code Enforcement Manager for City of Reno, and business license. J13 was an item requested by Councilmember Ayazi, specifically questioning how we addressed nonprofits and whether it was required by the state of Nevada and what the laws are in NRS and what other cities are doing. So with that, I'd like to point out that the state of Nevada does not have any specific requirements for the city or restrictions with regards to nonprofits. And they're specific, as we all know, the state of Nevada itself has a business license, state license. And in NRS 76.020, they do exempt nonprofits from the state license. They do still require a registration with the Secretary of State for nonprofits, but they are exempt from business license. As far as the city of Reno, we do have identified nonprofits as exempt from acquiring a business license or registering. Some of them do register with us. At current time, we have 148 entities that are registered with the city of Reno as nonprofits. And when I say nonprofits, I'm referring to the definition of a 501c status with the IRS. The city of Sparks has a similar approach with their nonprofits. The city of Henderson here within the state have the same approach as well, as far as no business license requirements or registration requirements. Washoe County, however, does require them to be issued a business license, and they do charge them for that, except for churches. And the city of Las Vegas, they have a more specific approach of how, as to how they identify nonprofits. They don't require a business license, but they're very specific as to what they determine as a nonprofit. And I'd like to read that. Under Las Vegas Municipal Code 6.02.065 under exceptions, D states, nonprofit professional services organization that provides all of its professional services to the public at no cost and has received this tax exempt status pursuant to Title 26 U.S. Section 501c, the IRS. And what I was specific about Las Vegas is that they say that if you are a nonprofit but you provide services for free, then you're considered exempt from getting a business license. So let's say you're a nonprofit, but you have services and you do charge for it and you make money off of it, even though you're considered a nonprofit, then they are required to get a business license and pay for said business license. But at current time, the city of Reno, city of Sparks, city of Henderson, we all don't require the registration, nor do we require a business license. So what we have before us are the consideration of requiring a registration, requiring a business license for nonprofit, and which nonprofits. Those would be the items that you could consider.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I brought this up Actually, from the discussion we had with REMSA, and I started looking into how much they said we couldn't charge them a franchise fee. So I said, well, how much do they pay in business license fees? And it turns out they don't pay anything in business license fees. It wasn't to go after churches. I don't even consider a church a business. They don't sell anything there. If they do have daycare there, I'm told that the daycare has a business license, so that part is done. Then from REMSA, I started looking at even Renown. I mean, they make millions and millions of dollars here, and I don't see how they're different than any other business in this community for paying a business fee to the city of Reno. We provide them with a lot of services that they don't pay. I don't even know if Renown pays property tax or not, but they don't pay a business tax. Now, if a doctor leases a property in there, that doctor has to have a business license. But why doesn't the facility itself have to have a business license then? You know, so if a doctor provides a service in his office, he pays a fee. But if you go to the emergency room or you're there for extended care, the hospital itself doesn't have to pay a fee. So I think we should look into this somehow to see what's just a fair thing to do. I don't know why doctors should have to pay the fee, but hospitals get away with it because they say they're a nonprofit. I don't even know what nonprofit they would be and why a hospital is considered a nonprofit, because they certainly have a lot of money left over at the end of the year.
Well, I certainly think it would be an interesting discussion, especially your analogy, your example rather, of the emergency room, because we know that the emergency room charges so few people pay those, ultimately they go in there. So I would think that in the case you're citing Renown, they probably would be able to come forward and at least justify or not, one way or the other. So they're always talking about hospital expenses going up, and this may be something, and I'm not taking a side on this, but maybe something that they oppose simply because the prices go up. But I think it's a worthy discussion. I don't see why not.
Yeah, I have no problem taking a look at this and seeing, you know, exactly how it works in other communities and everything else. I mean, it is a double-edged sword. I mean, if you impose additional fees on a company, they're going to pass that on to the consumer and have increased costs. So, I mean, it's definitely worth looking at.
You know, I agree with that. Then maybe we should drop it for doctors. I mean, it should, and I'm not for it either. I think that the discussion should be had and let some groups come forward and say why they should or shouldn't be. And I'm not even sure where to start on this, how you get the word out. Perhaps the headline in the newspaper just says Reno proposes fee on nonprofits. We'll have a lot of people here telling us what it means. But I think that's sort of the way it's going to have to go, because I really believe this is something we should look into to be fair to everyone.
Yeah. And what is the deal with REMSA as far as franchise fees or anything like that, Dave, what you've looked into?
Well, they told us that it's illegal for us to be charging a franchise fee. I don't think we've ever looked into that to see whether that's true or not. So I said, well, maybe we could charge them more on their business license fees, and I was told they don't pay a business license fee because they're a nonprofit.
I'd like to find out about the franchise fee. We charge the power company and everybody else franchise fees. So I'd like to know the answer to that one also.
And I guess the concern too is, are there abuses? I mean, people could come in and file for a 501c3 and be totally exempt from, I mean, it does come down to an issue of fairness. And I'm not sure if someone just sets up a 501c3, staff is never going to see them at the city level. So I can see there being some abuses that could take place and really getting around. We have the for-profit arms and then the non-for-profit arms under the same umbrella. So I think it is an issue of fairness of you've got some folks that are paying and some that aren't paying at all. And how does that create an equal playing field for people doing business here?
All right.
Can I just add one thing to this? And
Yes.
maybe Alex or Michael can. Is there a difference between nonprofit and not-for-profit?
Michael Chomp, Business License Division. No, there isn't a difference. The requirement is to be a 501c3 and registered with the state of Nevada.
Okay, thank you.
And for staff, if you are going to begin investigating this, the question that you asked Mr. Iazzi specifically about Renown, I'm thinking I remember something about the way they were established when they went from being a county operation that was, state NRS that established them. And perhaps that's where the nonprofit, I think I remember that it's by NRS that they have to be a nonprofit, but whether or not that gives them the right for no property tax, I don't know. But just take a look at that as well, that I believe they're NRS established.
So, Mr. Mayor, by way of direction, you said here that we would probably have to do a business impact statement. What's required in the business impact statement? I mean, if we went out with a blanket, say, just start the business impact statement portion of it to say that nonprofits will be charged. And once you do that, then do we narrow it down, or do we have to narrow it down before you start that?
The purpose of the business impact, one, it's required by state law, as you know. The other is to determine if there's going to be an economic impact on that business, that we're charging a fee or changing a rule or imposing a rule.
So,
Tracy Chase, Reno City Attorney's Office. Also, to assist you, a rule is an ordinance, so you know that terminology. And if you're going to change a rule or ordinance, they need to see the impacts of it. So we recommend that we actually draft a sample. So that's part of what we send out to the businesses.
I guess my question is, if we do that like a blanket, broad brush, then when everyone comes to us, and if we had a town hall meeting, whatever, could we narrow it down at that point, or would we have to do that business impact statement again?
It depends. If the business information you gave out to the businesses substantially changes, just like an ordinance, and we would recommend that you give the correct information out to the businesses and redo your business impact statement. If it's already included in what was sent out, maybe a lesser type of ordinance, then your business impact statement would stand because it would have advised the public of the maximum effect.
What if we said something like, if any business has a payroll over $250,000 a year, $500,000 a year, and that's the businesses we would look at to impact? Would that make that?
Well, if that stayed true all the way through, then your business impact statement and information you sent out to the public would have been accurate. But if for example, you sent out that certain threshold, but then you said, no, we're going to take it down to 100,000, then
I could see that, because they weren't
concern.
covered. That's what I thought, if we could make it narrower, but we couldn't make it broader.
Right. If it's included in what was sent out, then I think you're probably okay, as long as there's proper notice and that was included as an option. But if it's greater than what you notice the public, then that's where the concern is.
Let me start with something else. I'll give staff direction to start a business impact statement on nonprofits that have a payroll of over $500,000 a year. I'm just picking that number out of the blue. Yeah.
President.
Yeah, I guess the issue I see with that, Councilman Iazzi, a couple things right off the bat. Number one, churches, we don't know. They may have, I don't know, custodial. I don't know what their, if that would meet the threshold. I don't know, maybe the temple in Northwest Reno.
Here's where I see that's, they don't sell anything there. They're not a business. They don't charge admission to get in. Churches, to me, are exempt because they're not a business. They don't sell anything.
I guess that was my question. Can we, as we look at this, can we define what types of nonprofits are included and what aren't? I mean, are Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or
That's
Step
why I want
2
to
or Solace?
establish a pretty high threshold.
Any of those types of nonprofits, can we exclude them out? And I can see excluding them out based upon, I'm assuming, based upon the payroll threshold that you've set out there, that most of those would be excluded.
Yes, sir. Alex Woodley for the record. And going to both points of Councilman Mayazi and Dorch, if you remember the definition I read for Las Vegas, that pretty much identifies that, because they were very specific to say, provide services to the public at no cost.
But here's the problem, if I could finish my question, you have like the Hawk Clinic, Councilman Iazzi, and they provide dental work or medical on a sliding scale. So somebody who's in need may pay a $5 charge, or they may pay nothing. I mean, they operate under a sliding scale. So that's the only issue I can see with that. Planned Parenthood comes to mind. There's other organizations, nonprofit, especially in the human services categories, that do provide services on a sliding scale. I don't know, maybe the food bank,
I just want to throw out something to get
Well,
started.
No, I'm just saying that maybe that we look at that too, that sliding scale provision, I think we would cover
Well,
basically those services. I
We're
don't
not
know.
going to design it here. We're going to leave this up to Mr. Woodley to come back with some stuff. So we'll, Mr. Woodley, congratulations. You figure out what we
You did
just said.
such a good job with the
and
food
come back
trucks,
soon.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right, let's go to the 2 o'clock hearing, J6. Ms. Zedra, you had something.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is something that we've talked about, that I've brought forward a request several times for us to take a look at the TOD. And I think we should hear from staff the thought process. The reason why I wanted to bring it forward and have for the last year or so is the times certainly have changed. And when we established this, it was really as a result of the regional plan a decade ago. And times have changed. And we've heard, at least I've heard multiple times from developers, several who've actually come to the NAB and have to request a special use permit or a change just to be able to meet like the FAR on the TOD. And under these times, I think we really may need to reconsider it. So staff has taken a look at it and has a proposal for us.
Okay. Good afternoon, Claudia Hansen, Planning and Engineering Manager. We have looked at all the TODs and regional centers, not in depth on every little regulation, but we have gone through them. And in our recommendation towards the end of the staff report, I did mention that we would recommend to move forward with an elimination of the Reno Stead Regional Center Plan. Looking at that further, that probably doesn't need to happen. It's functioning fine the way it is. There's not much in there that's similar to the other TODs and regional centers, but it functions fine just the way it is. And we haven't heard any complaints on there, and it seems to be fine just the way it is. Looking at the TODs that we would recommend to have reviewed in more depth would be the North Virginia TOD, the West 4th Street TOD, and the Mill Street TOD. And all of those, we looked at those ones particularly because they're outside of the main core area, away from downtown, the medical center, UNR, convention center, kind of our core of where all our regional centers and TODs are. Those are the more less dense ones already, and that have less transit. Mill does have the transit, but doesn't have the development pattern that the other ones do. So staff would recommend looking at those in more depth. With that, also brings back the issue of the sphere of influence that Commissioner Dortch has brought up in the past, up in the Grandview Terrace area, and which is surrounded by the North Virginia TOD, so that area should be reviewed again. I have discussed that with the county quite a while ago when we were doing the Reno Stead corridor plan. We discussed that, and they were fine with that. And since the regional plan is being updated this year, that would be the time to do it, is to bring it up during that process. And also to look at the West 4th Street TOD out by the Gold Ranch area. You remember a few months ago we brought forward the zone change for the West 4th Street TOD, and you chose to pull the zone change back out of those areas further to the west past Gold Ranch. And so this would be the time also to address those issues of, if we're not going to zone them, how do we need to handle those? And there has been discussion to roll that area back out of the sphere as well. And at that time, you had a couple property owners come forward and request that the sphere be rolled back out in that area.
What about South Virginia Street here? I mean, I know you go to the southern part of South Virginia Street, but from California Avenue down, because a lot of those places are having problems with this TOD, this 16-foot setbacks and all these type of things are hurting. With one developer I know that's trying to build things, and every time he wants to do something, you got that 16-foot setback. So I'm just wondering why we're not addressing that.
That's being handled in a different process. We also have the South Virginia Street streetscape standards, that are moving forward, that came before you a few months ago. And Commissioners Gustin and Sferrazza asked that we go back and look at the design standards in that area in particular and adjust those standards. This one that we're discussing today is more the floor area ratio, the FAR, and the density requirements. So we already have that one open and moving forward through the process to amend those design standards, and I have met with a couple of the property owners in that area and developers in that area to address that situation.
Okay, because some of them, they're having problems. I mean, the soup, the building they put soup in, you got a
Right.
16-foot, 18-foot setback, and it cuts out a patio or something that could be outside for outside dining and stuff. Well, I mean,
Mr.
I
Mayor,
know we
we're
did
having a meeting on March 1st, Town Hall, for the Midtown Plan. So all this, I believe it's California Avenue to Regency and then over to Plumas. So all the issues you're bringing up will be discussed at that meeting,
Okay.
along with parking and all kinds of fun stuff. So-
Right, and those could be addressed in either the Midtown Market, or the Midtown Station Area Plan, or in the design standards for the Todd, either
because
one.
I know at one time when we had grandiose ideas and the world was a different place, we were looking at trolleys and all these type of things. And I don't think, well, my lifetime's a lot shorter than y'all's, but I don't think my grandkids are going to be seeing trolleys and things coming with federal government help and stuff anytime soon. Yes, Mr. Azzi.
On the FARs, where's downtown 4th Street on this? I mean, because I just don't know what you're talking about, West 4th Street and East 4th Street. What about the area like around, I guess anywhere between Virginia Street and Wells Avenue and all that would remain the same of what we have, the 3.0?
Yep, that's in, no, the entertainment core, the entertainment district is where the 3.0 is. And that's right, that's just, it's always been the entertainment district, even when we had the old plans. But over towards, I think that goes to about Evans, and then it's Evans to Wells is the Wells district, and I think it jumps down to,
Do you know what
I wanna
that
say
FAR is there? Do you have
1.0.
any idea what that?
I think it's 1.0 in that one. It's not the
Okay.
3.0,
So it's
which
a
is
lot
in
less.
the core. It's a lot less,
Okay.
yeah. And we can look at that also, but it is less than the actual core.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, motions?
I move that we have staff move forward with evaluating and bringing back recommendations on the PUDs, the TODs, and that there not be any consideration for elimination of any of the regional center plans, and that they specifically address the floor-to area ratios and bring us into a much more business-friendly, competitive line of operations so that we can service clients as our competitive jurisdictions are.
Have a motion?
That's a motion.
I have a second. Any discussion?
Just
Councilman
maybe
Swell.
one suggestion, because this came up at Building Enterprise Committee last month on the TODs and the FARs, and they're the ones who are actually building these projects. So I think to get input from them specifically about their issues that they're having with the TODs would be helpful to have. And I think they were going to do a subcommittee or something of the Building Enterprise.
We were going to hold a workshop to invite, so we can expand it beyond just that group, because there's other people who aren't
Yeah,
on that committee. And so we were
absolutely.
looking in early March to have that workshop.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item J7, update, discussion, direct staff regarding fees and charges related to new development.
Good afternoon. Council, Bill Thomas for the record, Assistant City Manager. This item also is a follow-up to previous council discussion, and the recommendation that we're presenting to you is that you direct us to do an analysis and evaluation of all the fees and charges that the city either directly or indirectly is involved in, as well as other fees or charges we're aware of that would have an effect or be applied to any new development or new investment. The idea being here is to look at these both individually and collectively and determine if, in fact, the individual fees or the fees in total are actually deterring investment or discouraging people from putting property back into use. The The timeframe as far as this particular matter is to bring this back in the context of your budget, because obviously if we make adjustments to the fees and charges that the city applies now, they will have some bearing, very likely, on funding sources for different activities that the city performs. And so we felt it was important not just to give you this information for the sake of having the information, but also put it in the context of what might be the ramifications if we adjust these fees. And obviously, we're talking about probably adjustments downward, so there would be less revenue, and we need to tell you what the consequences of reducing those revenues would be.
Should be an easy one. Councilman Zadra.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Again, this is, Bill, thank you. I know since you very first came on board, I captured you on the prior item and this one because it's something that I've been asking us to take a look at. It really is, it's more prevalent than it should be, the criticism that we're receiving from the business community and their opportunity to be able to do business within the city limits. And we need to do everything we can to find the right balance. It's really going to have an impact on our budget. And we need to be able to identify where's that breaking point where it's inviting and affordable for a developer to bring a project forward without killing us. We can't make a profit, but we also can't pay for much of their business expense. So it's going to be a challenge for you, and I appreciate that you're here to do it.
You're welcome, and I think the key word is balance, because that's what we're looking for.
Yep.
Councilman Srazza.
Yeah, and again, I want to follow up on that because the Building Enterprise Committee has had lengthy discussions about this. I mean, we've gone back and forth. It's come to this council, and I think we're finally at a place. I mean, they voted for, I mean, again, they're the users of the facility. I think the city manager has been very proactive in saving costs over at the Sinclair building by the big move with community development that's going to save some money. But I also think that the way the fees are established is based on time and materials, essentially, that's coming forth. We used to have, if you recall, I think it was $18,000 at one point for a special use permit fee for a certain category. So all that's been changed. I mean, that was brought to us. We've looked at this like 3 times and said, okay. And I think staff at first was reluctant to move forward on that based on the time and having staff calculate that time. But to my recollection, knowledge, last meeting, I think Claudia gave the report. I think things are on schedule, and I think the business community is liking actually being billed based on the time it takes to process an application. I haven't heard anything otherwise.
I think that's part of what we'll look at is how do we actually apply the fees. There's some issues, too, I think I've heard from the private sector about how some of these fees are applied. And so there might also be some revelations about how we inform our customers or users these fees are charged and developed. But I think the key is probably looking at all of them, because oftentimes just one fee isn't really the issue. It is often how it's combined with other fees and also when it's applied. We may find some things that say, well, maybe we don't have to change the fee, but we need to do it at a different time. Because that's also an issue for people now is, not so much.
Cash flow.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the master.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And Bill, I don't know if you could do this here, but I asked a couple of years ago, I don't know if there's a standard development in Reno, like maybe a standard house and a standard restaurant, about all the fees that are charged, not just by the city of Reno, because where does it stack up with the health department fees, and the county fees, and the state fees, to say how much of your house goes to fees? Or opening up a restaurant. I think that'd be useful for someone thinking about opening up a bar. Here's generally what you have to go through, because it's not just the city of Reno that hits these guys. It's like I say, the health department's a big one, and depending on what they're opening, there could be others.
That was our intent, is to look at everything. We've identified 4 sample developments, so we could look at commercial, residential, office, and basically look at different types of situations where somebody would bring a project forward and what are all the fees and all the costs.
I was just bringing in the fees, not that the city charges, but other
Everything.
entities.
Health department,
Correct.
traffic impact fees, all those.
Right,
we need to have all that.
RTC they have a big fee there too, yeah.
I've also talked to and will continue to pursue members of the private sector, including the Builders Association, to give us some, perhaps they'll give us a real project. Maybe take the name off and the address and say, here's really what it was. So you get a sense of everything that is charged. And I think they'll be helpful in providing that kind of information.
Wouldn't that be public info anyway? I mean, couldn't we randomly pick a project in the system and find out what those
You could.
fees
The
are?
part of the problem is that, you know, the fees are, as Councilman Ayazi is saying, is a lot of the fees are taken in by different agencies. So we may miss some or not know. So if they can give us a real project where they can say, here's, you know, everything we paid to do this, then it gives us a better understanding of fees maybe we're not aware of that they're paying too. So we really do have that snapshot of what is somebody who comes to town and wants to build, what are they up against?
Like to make a motion, Sharon?
She did.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Did we do J5, or was that also postponed to 4? Okay. J14, I believe. J14, discussion and potential direction regarding request from the Legislative Commission Subcommittee.
Yeah. Why do we even want to get involved in this?
Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you, Councilman Ayazi. For the record, Cadence Matievich, Assistant City Manager. I'm here today before you.
Is that the first time you got to say that? Publicly, maybe.
In fact, it is. Yes, thanks.
And you're talking about your old haunts.
Yes, very much so, which will be my new haunts.
Oh, yeah, I congratulated him earlier today.
So the item that's before you today, and Councilwoman Speraz, I think I heard a question from you right off the bat of why do we want to get into this mess? And if I may, I'd just like to give a little bit of background that will perhaps answer that question and set the basis for our conversation today. At the close of the 2011 legislative session, Council may remember we came back to you with a number of interim study committees that were going to be looking at various things, and this particular committee is one that we told you we would be keeping a close eye on. And it is the Legislative Commission Subcommittee to study the allocation of money distributed from the local government tax distribution account. For ease of reference, we'll call it the CTAX Study Committee. And they held their first meeting earlier this month, and the meeting was primarily a historical overview for the committee members and provided them with some background on the current CTAX formulas, how they came to be, a great deal of background. At that meeting, representatives from the Nevada Association of Counties, NACO, and the Nevada League of Cities were asked to speak on behalf of their membership and identify any issues that the individual members and that the membership as a whole had come up with the current allocation formula. Unfortunately, there was not consensus amongst the members. The NACO members, the county members, were very much on the same page, but the cities and towns were not. And so at that point, the request was made by the chairwoman of the committee that every local government, so every city and county in the state, put this on an agenda, requested that we put this on an agenda for the governing bodies to consider and deliberate and to provide feedback to the committee on any issues that we have with the current allocation formula. And it was essentially speak now or forever hold your peace. And so under that understanding and given the objectives of this committee, which is to look at the current formula and equity within the formula, it is my opinion as your staff that this committee is not going to delve into the policy issues that created the formula. So there is some question about how do you define equity if you don't believe that the policy behind the formula creates equity. There may be some challenges there. It's my opinion that that's not what this committee is going to look at, but they're going to look at the existing, if you will, mathematical formula, see if there are inequities within that mathematical formula and how they could be addressed. And it's on that basis that staff is making a recommendation to you that we provide a letter to the committee that would request a base adjustment to our allocation of CTAX in the amount of $1.9 million, and that amount would be included in any future distributions. I must say that by taking that action, if it were to be approved, there would likely be impact to the other local governing bodies in our region, so Washoe County and Sparks. It's certainly not a recommendation that we make lightly, but given the request from the chairwoman and the objectives of this committee, we are making that recommendation. The foundation for that recommendation is actually based on a recommendation that was made by the Department of Taxation all the way back in 1998 when the C-tax formula was created. There was an opportunity at that time for local governments to come forward and request adjustments. The City of Reno is one of those that did. The Department of Taxation made that recommendation of the $1.9 million, and unfortunately, it was not adopted by the Committee on Local Government Finance. So with that, I'd be pleased to answer any questions, try to provide more detail.
Any questions? I have one. So we get, what percent do we get now the City of Reno gets is C-tax?
This is Robert Chisel, Finance Director for the City of Reno. We get approximately 29% of the C-tax distribution that comes to Washoe County.
And do we know how much is generated within the city limits of Reno?
Yeah, we don't have current figures. Going back, some of the older numbers are showing 70 to 75% of the sales tax are generated within the city limits. And of course, over 55% of the population is in the city also.
I just wanted to point that out too, that that's part of what we're talking about. It's a lot of people in the community think that this is situs-based sales tax. When I've talked to them about paying for, oh, I buy stuff in Reno all the time. It doesn't matter to us where you buy it in Washoe County. You could buy in Sparks or Hidden Valley. It doesn't matter because we get the same amount of taxes. And it's far less than what we generate.
Correct.
So when I would tell people, you drive into Reno to do your shopping, but you don't help us pay for the roads. That's what I meant by that, because we don't get that money by coming to Reno to pay for that shopping. That's all, most of that money goes to the county. So I just wanted to put that on we get back a third of what we put in. Okay. Anyone want to make a motion? Motion is second. Any discussion?
I just do want to point out that Henderson did receive the same recommendation from taxation, and theirs was adjusted. So I think the issue with this is the counties have a different opinion, obviously, and even at our League of Cities meeting, there was some dissension in regards to that going on. I mean, you even have the issue of Laughlin down there, so an incorporated city. So, but I agree. I think based on the distribution, I mean, we've got to do that letter on based on the facts and what Department of Taxation is recommending.
Yeah. And I would point out, Councilwoman, you're correct that the City of Henderson did receive that adjustment. They did not receive it as part of that initial adjustment process. They actually received it in a special session in 2001, and so they were the only one of the group that recommendation had been, that base adjustment had been made for, that was actually ever granted that. And I will say that certainly, as you would expect of us, staff will be very much involved in the actions of this committee, and should some other methodology or something else come forward that perhaps would address equity within the existing formula, certainly if they do decide to get into the policy issues, we'll be bringing you updates and seeking your direction at that point.
Okay. Yes, sir. Mr. Guston.
And Mr. Mayor, I am going to support this because I'm trying to think of the committee we formed. We took some time. We took and we formed a committee to
The first committee?
What?
First.
That's what it was, the first committee. And we went through this whole thing and documented where the money was coming from and why we weren't getting our fair share at the time, and it just didn't go anywhere. I mean, there wasn't really acceptance. People said, okay, that's true, but it never changed any opinions or any thoughts. So I think we need to take the next step and submit this letter and see where that goes. Because we didn't have any success last time when we had the first committee formed, and we had good people who worked many hours and put together good information about just what you're talking about, the 29% versus the 41 or 42% that one of the other entities gets. So I think we need to move forward.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried by Mr. Guston.
Thank
You're the only one I heard who voted, so. Should we break and do the redevelopment one now? Okay. I'll call this meeting February 22nd of the Redevelopment Agency Joint Reno City Council meeting to order. Could I get the roll call, please?
Has to have absent. Guston?
Zadra. Safraza. George. Ayazi.
Here.
Kashal. Absent.
Item A2, public.
Scott.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Scott. Mr. Guston's also here now. Do we have any public comment cards? I don't see anyone from the public wishing to make a statement at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment. Approval of the agenda. Was B3 going to get pulled? Do we want that pulled now? Okay. I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're on item A4 on the redevelopment. Approval of the minutes. Have a motion? Go, and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item B1, discussion regarding newspaper racks and stands in the downtown entertainment core.
For the record, Steve Hardesty, Public Works. I'm before you at your request to get direction as to how you want to proceed with this. The newspaper racks that you're talking about, they went in 1988. It was an informal agreement at that time between the redevelopment agency, the vendors, and the publishers that the redevelopment agency would put the newspaper racks in, of which there was roughly 200 boxes throughout downtown, throughout basically the Virginia, Center Street, and Sierra Street corridor. Since that time, they've been removed, replaced, shifted, relocated, broken, and we're probably down to about 140 to 160. The publishers and vendors have changed over time. That agreement's pretty much shot because of the condition of these boxes. You can see they're not being kept up. We just want to get some direction as to what the council would like us to do.
Who was supposed to keep them up and all this type of stuff?
The maintenance of them overall was supposed to be done by the vendors and the publishers. That was the informal agreement that was, and back in those days, this was before I was here, but in those days there was a lot of informal things going on. So,
I'd like to see them gone away with, but I mean, if we do, then they're going to come in with their own portable racks, and you're going to have 19 different racks down there.
One of the options that we do have, sir, is there is the possibility that we can do a sidewalk ordinance. It's one of the things that we could possibly look into. That has been done in other communities. That's my understanding. It has been done in other communities. So we could actually define where things go on our sidewalk, how things look on our sidewalk, and at that point, you know, we have a little bit more direction than what we've got right now.
Because it was my understanding the reason we did these is to get them back away from the street in certain areas and put them in so they were all uniform instead of having a red one, blue one, green ones, and short truce and all the other stuff.
Originally, they were supposed to be uniform, and they were actually put out on the curbside. It was under the direction and under the requests of the police department over time that we started to put them back up against the building. And that's probably a more preferable place.
Right.
According to some of the business owners downtown, a more preferable place would be out at the courtyard and not downtown. But those are kind of things that we need to get from the business owners as well as the vendors and the publishers and everybody else.
So who collects the money out of them?
I believe that there's a distributor that works for the publishers. I think it's Newspaper Distributors, I think is what the outfit is called. And they actually put the newspapers in. They're hired by the publishers to actually put the newspapers in the box, collect the money, and redistribute it back out.
Well, we ought to be able to do something to control it, because I saw some the other day, the fronts of them are mashed out, and if it's the newspapers or the magazines or whoever it is, whoever's doing them needs to pay a maintenance and pay us a fee for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do about this, Mr. Mayor, but I think if we could even go around cursory and see the ones that are really badly damaged, we should just take them out. Maybe meet with those distributors. I mean, I showed you some pictures of one over by the post office where they're down like 20 feet away by the entrance to the post office, not in the corner. Maybe it's just we move one. But I think we can get rid of some of them for sure. And maybe the place to start is take this to the DIA and see if they want to take this on. Now, that's what they're here for, to see how we can improve the downtown area. But I just see, and I don't see all of them, because I would never have guessed we had 140 to 160 out there right now. Now, are you talking about when you say that, just cubicles?
The individual cubicles.
Okay, you
So
don't know
the
how many.
clusters usually run anywhere from 4 to 8.
So we might only have 20 clusters out there.
Yes, sir.
So do we have even some semblance of a map of where they are?
Yes, sir. It would have to be updated. There's been so many changes
Will
lately
you get
with
me that
new
map?
sidewalks and
I'll
those
go
kind of
walk
things.
around, take a look at them. So let's just put this on the radar, Mr. Mayor, and maybe ask the DIA to take the lead on this if they want to sort of.
And I absolutely agree. And Steve, I remember that we had this discussion probably 5 years ago. When
2008, yes, ma'am.
Pete, yeah, okay, so that would be about it. And that they held a lot of meetings with the individual publications. I think I remember hearing that the Gazette-Journal publisher himself attended a couple of those meetings. So we need to kind of revisit what those, what we learned there and see if we can gain recommitment to the standards that were somewhat established.
Well, maybe even with the attorney, if we can establish something that we could require them to go in those, that would be something also.
Yep.
That I don't think we can, I don't know if we can charge them for that, Mr. Mayor. That's a whole issue on the freedom of the speech thing, but it would sure look better downtown if we had a big,
Yep.
put them in and clean them all up one time. Maybe cannibalize some of them to make 20 of them look good and put them in the places where they need to be placed.
Because you don't want to have, like it was at one time, a red one, a green one, a blue one, and short truths, and a yellow, and all this type of stuff. I don't think. I
Well,
like the uniform better.
And that's the question too, is can you make those, it's not always the publishers of the paid ones. It's the ones that are out there that blow over all the time are those cheap plastic ones from the apartment rentals.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to be able to make them put those in there, because when the winds come up, those ones blow over and then they scatter all over the place.
Well, anybody that, we ought to be able to come up with an ordinance that anybody that's displaying something like that has to rent one of those boxes or something.
So I'll make a motion that we ask the city attorney to look into that ordinance, that we ask the DIA if they would like to lead the charge on this one, and that we get a map of where we think they are right now. I need a second, or not.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Appointment to the redevelopment agency board.
Continue. Continue.
We to continue that one?
No, there's a second. It's just a reappointment.
Oh, we need to reappoint that now?
No, I'm sorry, it is not, sorry.
Identification of future agenda items? Public comment?
We do need the agenda item. Don't we have to vote again to meet with the county on the date we picked? The joint meeting with the county. Legal said we didn't do it correctly at the joint meeting. The motion to meet. Am I right on that? Yeah, I'm just looking at the calendar. March 19th.
Is that as a redevelopment agency board?
Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind, on the
Okay.
regular agenda.
Okay, we're adjourned. We'll go back to item J16 on the Reno City Council. Thank you. Your input's always valuable. Item J16, update and approval of postponement of appeal of the administrative decision to deny sign permit.
Tracy Chase, Reno City Attorney's Office. I know we received a request for a continuance. If you could just move this off a couple items, I believe Ms. Craig
Okay.
is unavailable for a few minutes, and I'll get her here.
Okay. Item K1, boards and commission appointments, Charter Review Committee. We have 4
many-
vacancies left, and we have 7 applicants.
And I think what we're looking here, as we talked last time, when we only had 5 applicants, we appointed them, we're looking for
Ward
for
3.
community-wide
Yeah.
Ward 3 and Ward
representation.
5, I
And I don't know if we're any closer on that.
We needed a 5.
Ward 3, we
right?
do have one more applicant, and that's Oscar Delgado. And I would like to see him appointed to the committee. And I think 3 and 5 was what wasn't,
Teresa Navarro?
we didn't have, my recollection, we didn't have those two represented.
Right.
So,
I think Michael Pogny would be great, too.
Okay.
well, how many do we have
That's
from
4.
one?
There's 4 left, that's 4 that we just mentioned.
Who do we have? I'm sorry.
We have
Oscar.
Michael Pagni, Oscar Delgado, Teresa Navarro, and James Bailey.
No, James Bailey, no.
Oh, then we have
Because
3.
you've got Oscar from,
Yeah, we have
three.
Oscar,
Okay.
but I think we have like 3 from 1 again. But Mario De La Rosa from 4 would
Okay.
be a great addition as well.
so we go Pogny, De La Rosa, Navarro, and Delgado.
Yes.
Are those the 4?
I'm sorry, say that again?
That'd be my motion.
Pagni, so the motion is Michael Pagni from Ward 1, Mario De La Rosa from Ward 4, Oscar Delgado from Ward 3, Teresa Navarro from Ward 5.
Okay.
The motion?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item B, Historical Resources Commission.
No action at
No
this
action.
time.
Ward 1,
And I would like to reappoint James Brown and Mark Tatter.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ward 3,
Yes, like to reappoint Kathy Mastrano. I can never say her last name.
Astrantuano.
Kathy M.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ward 4,
Yeah, I'm going to continue this to the next meeting. I've got 5 applicants here, and I actually think I've got a couple more coming in, and I haven't had a chance to review these at all yet. I just saw them today. So let's
Okay.
put them all on the next agenda.
Is that North Valleys or is that Northeast?
It's North Valleys.
Okay.
Ward 5, I just have the term of Mac Rossi. I'd like someone to make a motion to reappoint him.
Move to reappoint Mark
Second.
Rossi?
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item K2, appointment members to the Animal Services Task Force.
Mr. Mayor, I've done a lot of discussion with various people about the applications that we received. I think we had some really good applications. Have talked to a few of the individuals, wasn't able to get to all of them. But looking at the various backgrounds that each presents, and to also pay respect to our desire when we create committees to try and have them equally balanced, representing wards as best we can, not all from one particular area, not all just for, in the case of this particular committee, not just from the city of Reno, but also the county and Sparks. I would identify 8 names, and they would include Jim Johns, who's county, so 2 of these would be county, 2 would be Sparks, and 4 would be Reno. Jim Johns, Tom Jacobs, Denise Stevens, Susan Casarini, if I got that right, Peggy Palika, Judith Snell, Judith Howard, and James Burns.
Second.
Okay. Everybody clear on those? Were you clear on those? Okay. Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for taking that on, Sharon.
They have some work to do.
Identification, future agenda items.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh,
I'm sorry, for the record, Barbara DeCiano, Community Liaison. Councilmember Zadrak, would you like to identify a start date for the meetings or just?
Immediate, and the motion should have included accept staff report to work to bring back recommendations to us by our April 25th meeting, so that any action could be included in any budgetary kinds of considerations that we may have.
so you want them to finish by the 25th of April? Okay,
Yep, work pretty rapidly.
okay. And when would they start? Do we have a start date, or are you going to have to talk to them first?
I will contact the appointees
Okay,
immediately.
so if they're watching, they'll be contacted as soon as possible to start.
Call me. Thank you.
I'm going to take that as a separate motion to have them come back by April 25th.
So moved?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Any future agenda items?
You know,
Mr. Guston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. I see Mr. Hawkins, who was here earlier and spoke in public comment, and I guess maybe clarification. He asked about, and I see because of the nominations for Ward 4, which I know from time to time, Ward 2, 3, and 4 have had problems getting people, and now that you're going to separate the two wards and make it, Ward 4 will go back to have their own committee. He may raise some issues about NAB appointments and terms and attendance requirements, and I'm not sure if those are those in concrete, and what flexibility do we have? Do we need to come back with some kind of report on that, or can we clarify that now?
We can waive the rules. We've done it in the past. I've had applicants, other members that have come and said, and asked me to waive the rules to reappoint them. I just haven't had that request from anyone on our NAB.
I
But
actually
we've done
have
it in
at
the
least
past.
2 or 3 members that we've waived
We have
the
complete
rules for on my
flexibility in how
maps.
we handle that.
Yeah.
Okay, then that's great.
Tracy Chase, Reno City Attorney's Office. Yeah, that's a resolution that this council did, and we can always revisit the resolution. You have the power to do that and waive your rules, so.
Okay, so we don't need a future agenda item, and that, I say that to Mr. Hawkins because you asked that question earlier, so those rules can be waived, and that answers everything you said noddingly? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anything else? Next is liaison reports. You want to fill us in on flood control? We'll also do reports of conferences because we both went to Washington DC and we had a flood meeting this morning.
Go ahead, Dave, because I
No,
think
go
you
ahead.
prepared your statement this morning at the meeting,
Well,
and
you
then
start.
I'll
and
go
might-
from
I'll
there.
find my statement.
Basically, flood control, we did meet this morning. Just to let you guys know, Councilman Ayazi and I were back in Washington, D.C., meeting directly with the Assistant Secretary of the Army, the head of the Corps of Engineers, and our federal delegation. Before that time, Councilman Ayazi and I drove to the Sacramento office because we had seen no progress being made on the flood control project, so we wanted to go down there directly and hear what the issues were. Essentially, we were told at that meeting that the 50-year recommendation was what they were going to be recommending, and I think it's going to be extremely difficult to get anything above that 50-year plan. So that being said, we support moving forward with a 50-year plan. Obviously, there's still funding issues with the locally preferred plan, but that would ultimately be something that we would have to go to the community out on to find out, because that would be 100% local share, to find out what they want in a flood control project, such as the terracing. We were also told that our project is very heavy on the restoration side, and to focus specifically on flood control elements. That being said, what we pushed for back in D.C. was to ultimately get to a chief's report. The chief's report is important for 2 reasons. Number one, that we need that report to get any authorization from Congress and funding ultimately for this project. But number 2, we also need it to go out to the community, because if we're not going to have some type of share on the federal level, we need to go out to our community and say, okay, what do you want in a flood control project? That being said, the 50-year plan, just so the council knows, essentially takes out all the elements for downtown, all the bridges, all the walls, everything that we've pushed so hard for. However, in the political realities of what's going on in D.C., I think what we're shooting for is something is better than nothing. However, that being said, as you know, the city of Reno has been contributing to the local sales tax that funds the flood control project. The Virginia Street Bridge that we've all made the decision on to move forward on should be the top priority for us as a city and as a flood control project. Sorry I'm taking a little time here, but I believe this is very important. Myself and Councilman Ayazi, we both, and I'll let him speak for himself, but I've certainly had issues with the way the flood control project has gone since the the prior executive director resigned. I haven't seen any progress on this project almost the entire time I've been there. So you have to look and say, okay, we've got the same exact staff in place, and we're not moving forward in a direction. And I think the commitment was made by myself and Councilman Ayazi with some concern by this council on moving forward with the JPA. And we have kept that word to this council and taken those issues forward to the Flood Control Committee. At this point in time, from what I've witnessed and what I've seen, I'm not prepared to move forward on the recommendation for the executive director without 3 plans in place, and I'll let Dave talk about that, but also to make sure that Reno gets its fair share and that Virginia Street Bridge is funded. And we have asked for $10 million. This is very important project to the city of Reno, not only for flood control, but it's also the worst rated bridge in the state of Nevada. This is a public safety issue. So as far as I'm concerned, that has got to be a priority of the flood control project. And so far, I mean, we had Gino Martini said today at the flood control meeting that there was no skin in the game by the city of Reno. Well, I would have to disagree immensely, because we're supporting a 50-year plan that took out all the elements for the city of Reno, number one. And number two, the city of Reno contributes the majority of the sales tax that's going to the flood control project. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. But I think we're going to need the assistance of our stakeholders in downtown Reno, but also that from the community on what the importance is of getting this project done for the Virginia Street Bridge. I also want to add that Councilman Ayazi and I did try and put a motion in for the executive director over the next 6 months, because that's what we're looking at, the time period to get to a chief's report. But also included in that, I did make a recommendation besides the Virginia Street Bridge that we also help with the North Truckee Drain, which is a very important project to the city of Sparks. It's 90% designed, so they're almost ready to go to construction. So this isn't about a jurisdictional battle. The flood control project serves the entire community, but unfortunately, we're just not getting the support and help from the other jurisdictions. And I feel that Reno's been left out of the loop on all this, and we've been going at this for years and years and years. It's time to get on the ball, get the Virginia Street Bridge project going, and make that a top priority for flood control.
Yeah, we had postponed hiring the executive director. That's what's was on the big meeting today, and I postponed that until after the Washington trip, because there were some issues that I've had with the executive director, knowing full well that he's an engineer, and to run a department that's going to handle a billion-dollar project and working with the Army Corps just takes a different skill set, I think, to run something such as this. And I spelled out 10 reasons today as to why I didn't think he was ready right now. But I'm willing to give him 6 months to try if we give specific steps of what we want it done in those 6 months. And if he can make that trend, we've had the same problem with Tumwa. We had an executive director that came from the private sector, and he didn't stay here very long. And I mean, I just know it's very difficult to deal in the public environment. So that was on the issue today. We chose not to give him a 2-year contract. We put on the table a 6-month contract, and that was rejected. Well, actually, it was postponed. The attorney said that wasn't on the agenda, so that will be on our next agenda to see whether we can do that. So we're in favor of moving this project forward with an executive director, but it can't be for a 2-year time period right now, because we'll know by the end of this calendar year whether the Army Corps is really going to even have a project. And one of my big concerns over the executive director is right now we should have 3 clear paths that we would be going down and have a plan for each one. If the Army Corps says we'll do the 50-year plan, and that's all we have the money for, that's all we would do. So how would we proceed under that scenario? What would the scenario be if the Army Corps did the 50-year plan and we implemented this fee to do the 50-year plan and the LPP, the locally preferred plan? That should be the next one. And the third one is if the Army Corps pulls out altogether and we have to do it all on our own, what would we do with that? So there's not any long-term thinking. It seems to be what's happening next week over there. It doesn't seem to be thinking beyond the the next agenda meeting. And we're trying to get that out there, and I think the public deserves something at the end of a contract to say, these are the returnables, this is what we paid you to do, and this is what got done. And I want to put some of those things in there. I made numerous mentions in here of, I promised you guys when we got you to agree to this, that we would hold their feet to the fire, and we're not just going to roll over and do anything. And that's what we're bringing forward, that we're going to keep holding on to that and make sure that Reno still gets what we need to get out of some of this. And for us, we also had these discussions in Washington. It wasn't just about flood control. These are the two projects that are closest to actually getting jobs done, the Virginia Street Bridge and the North Truckee Drain. We've been maneuvering money on the on the Virginia Street Bridge to take it from more of a transportation project. We need some funding fill-in from the Truckee River project, the flood project. But if the Army Corps takes it off their list, it has to be from the 8 cent that's coming in right now. So I think it's going to be painted that we're trying to stop this process. We're really not. I really feel we're bringing in alternatives that will deliver to the taxpayers some deliverable goods about what they can expect to see. Because this is the most vital 6 or 8 months in the whole history, I believe. We're teetering on the bridge, on the brink of not getting anything.
One other thing, too, after that vote on the director's position, 2 members of the board voted down everything else that was on the agenda today. So I just wanted to give the council scope of what's really going on over there. Everything was voted down, from bristlecone resources to having our lobbyists back in D.C. So, I mean, I really feel, Mr. Mayor, that it wouldn't be prudent to the taxpayers to approve a contract when we don't even know at this point in time what we're actually going to get funded from the Corps of Engineers, and there is no plan. And again, these are the same staff that we've had in place. Really, I think Mr. Aldean's been there for 5 years, and we're on a totally different track. I brought this up at the flood control meeting today. It would be like our city manager bringing forward a budget that wasn't realistic whatsoever, and for us to adopt. That's what we look for an executive director on these boards for, to bring us the truth and the whole truth of what the realities are that's going to happen, and the scope of what this project is.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
First of all, having sat in the chair that the two of you sit in, or one of those chairs, for almost 6 years, I understand deeply what you're going through. I thank you and applaud you. When Councilman Azzi, I knew you were going to go to Sacramento. I didn't know that Councilman Safraza went also. But almost everybody should go there to sit at that big square table and see people pass the buck back and forth and get nothing done. And I don't know if that's what you had, or you had a much smaller meeting. So I know how difficult it is. I've been there myself at the Corps of Engineers. And again, thank you for going to Washington, D.C. I don't have any comment about your trials and tribulations right now with the contract that's on the table, because I really don't know any more about it than what I've seen in the news. But I will say this, that when we first started talking about this way back when, I was one of the people who was very adamant about, let's not settle for a 50-year. I believe that we have now is, what, 17 years? Is that what the number is?
Depends on where you are.
Depends where you are. Well, we talked about 117, and I was always say, okay, when Ms. Dura was there, I said, I really don't think I'd support anything less than 75. But as Councilman Safraza says, there's reality to this. The 1/8 cent sales tax has been raising money. We know the importance of the bridge. We know the importance of the North Truckee Drain. I'm glad I'm not sitting in your seat right now, because the difficulty is, if the project is whatever 100 millions it is right now, I don't know, with it being scaled back. That's why the JPA was formed, so that it would have an authority to go out and assess fees for on whatever scale that was. And that's when I about left the board, when that was just about approved. So the difficulty in assessing the population, you're both right. I mean, the community's going to have to ask, what do you really want? Because we're talking about economic times where we don't have enough money to do a lot of things, and now we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars for flood protection. I remember, Councilman Azzi, and I think you said this maybe in jest at one time, but I think there was some seriousness to it. you were talking about inflatables that would come in somewhere around the Lear and come down Virginia Street and direct that water. Maybe it would come back in past the bridge on Center Street. So the difficulty of what's happening in a flood and to know that we're at a 50-year level, that I think people need to know. That means that still at a 75 or 100-year flood, Reno's going to flood. And exactly. So, you know, you're struggling with a lot of things here, and I'm glad that you grabbed it by the reins, because something needs to go forward or another plan. You're absolutely correct in that, having sat there and, you know, we had this build up and the Corps was going to participate, and then when it really comes down to that bottom line, what I'm hearing from you is that support is not there. And I know it's cost-benefit ratio. They're looking at that, and they never have been able to see the cost-benefit ratio for downtown Reno. As much as all of us have talked about that repeatedly, they don't see it. I don't get it. I don't understand why they don't get it, but it'll be very interesting to see what goes forward. So that's why when you said you're taking too much time, I'm taking too much time. But this is really important, what you're saying and what you're doing, and how we're going to go from here and what mitigation we're going to have for flood. I don't have the answer. I know I was thinking just as recently as yesterday, Councilman Yazzie, you talked about funneling that water with inflatables down First Street, and what went through my mind was, how do you get the debris out of the river? Because that's the real problem when it comes to the bridges, and so I won't go on with this, but it's on my mind too, and I'm glad you're working on it, because it is a difficult task, and now we seem to, our support is dissipated at the federal level, and I can kind of understand that with entitlements and the dollars and cents, but I'm like you, I don't know where we go forward, but if it's 50 as best we can get, and we got 17 now, okay, I guess that's what we had to have. But people need to know, who will be assessed money to pay for the flood project, that their Reno is still going to flood. And I think we're going to get a lot of turned down noses when we talk about that. So,
Absolutely.
thank you.
And I think one of the reasons I'm in favor of doing it, if they do a 50-year plan, is because some places are only 17. So this would make the whole river at least a 50-year flood protection. Right now, it doesn't help to have one block being 50-year and the block upstream being 17, because it'll just go behind there. So this would be consistency throughout. And I asked them specifically, if we were to enact our own tax then and do our own projects, would all of the entitlements have to start again? And they said, no, you could add on to our projects. So I asked that question so it wouldn't hinder anything. If we picked the 50-year and we chose to do some stuff individually, we really wouldn't have to start with brand new EISs again.
Is the contract hang up on the going forward, or would they consider a one-year contract instead of a two-year contract?
So far, they haven't said anything. I'm mostly concerned with these deliverables at the end of it. And one thing is 1 year is still past the time frame. There's a lot of things that were said a couple of months ago that I've just brought back. You know, when we first did this in August or September, I think, maybe it was October, when Mr. Aldean wasn't my first choice, but I said, okay, to move this forward, we'll pick him. But at that time, they only wanted him there for a few months to get past this FPA process. And 6 months will get him again through the FPA process. So I think it's enough to see at the end of the day whether he can rise to the occasion, and also whether the Army Corps, we don't have a year to let people sit around and try to figure it out. We've got to push them all to get it done quicker. That's my impression, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
It just has to be moved.
The council people,
Yes.
that are representatives, is it still procedurally that you need a unanimous vote on everything? I think you guys didn't say that. Other people
Yes.
that haven't been through that need to know that that's what it's not a majority vote. It's not a super majority. It's a unanimous vote. That's why some
And
of the
that's what they keep
loggerheads are
trying to
having.
bring up as well. If he doesn't perform, we can always hire someone new, but it takes a unanimous vote to get rid of him. That's another reason why I'm being very particular on this contract. If one person says, no, we're going to keep any contract, so it's basically like forever.
You know, and I know at one time you weren't necessarily in favor of the unanimous vote. Is that correct? Am I correct about that,
Correct.
Dave? And you know what? I think the way it has worked out is better, because you'll have to have cooperation from all three entities. I mean, they'll all have to sign off now, especially now when it's crucial that this goes forward. everybody has to sign off. So I think I'm glad that that was kept intact, that you need a unanimous vote on the project itself. I'm not talking about the director, but on the project itself.
And the director. And we gave them the option when we formed the JPA. It's either unanimous vote with the 2, and 2, or we make the representation a little more about who's represented here, which would mean Reno and Sparks would have a lot more people on the board, and the county would have relatively none. And I gave it up to them. You know, I cut the cake, you pick which side you want. They thought unanimous would be better, because it's unfair to the Reno residents that we would only have 1/3 of the vote on a board like that.
Is the unanimity going to continue? I mean, Jessica, you said this morning after the action on the executive director that there were two members who attempted to just put a stall to the rest of the action. Do you anticipate that that's going to be the future behavior?
Well, I think that that's in the JPA, the unanimous structure. So I believe in the way the formation of the JPA was done, that it would be each jurisdiction would have to agree. So not just Sparks or not just Reno to change the unanimous structure. It would have to be approved by all three bodies to change the JPA. And quite frankly, I'm glad we have the unanimous structure, because right now, Reno is not protected. We have nothing in the 50-year plan, essentially, all the elements, and we're asking to essentially have to step up the plate and fund part of this thing when, again, we need to see some deliverables on what's important to our community, too. And I'm just not seeing that from the other side. It's all about us and all about our projects, when it really needs to be a community-wide flood control project. And that bridge is very important to us. Unless the councils change their opinion, I'm not hearing that today. But we finally came to a decision on that bridge.
I got to convince Councilman Gustafson he picked the wrong bridge. But other than that, health things are great.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't go back at you, but I remember there was a meeting, the monthly meeting you have from people in the community, and the question was asked, what if we don't build the Virginia Street Bridge? And my answer was, well, you'll take Sierra Street. Because you're right. I mean, it's the most dangerous bridge, and it will fail.
So maybe we put a pedestrian bridge there and create them all on Virginia Street.
Oh, Lord, we're going back in time again, aren't we?
Has anything changed, Mr. Mayor? Has anything changed?
It's my staff report, Mr. Mayor.
All right, good. Now, where are we?
Liaison reports.
Liaison reports, okay. J16.
Mr. Mayor, Tracy Chase, Reno City Attorney's Office. J16 basically asks for an open continuance on this appeal until such time as the case that's being heard in the federal court, Herson versus City of Reno, which challenges the constitution of the city's ordinance regarding billboards, is decided. I do have a letter that I'll provide to the clerk that has Mr. Fernhoff's attorney's consent to that extension, and we believe it's in the best interests of the city as well.
Okay. Have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Now we're
We did ours.
any reports on conference or professionals? We just finished. Any others? L4, transfer of funds. Have motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Mayor,
L5.
can I ask,
Yes.
where is this plaque going to be? You know where this memorial's going to go?
I don't know right off. I know the one they were designing was going to be out by the air race where the crash was, but I don't know if they've changed that. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, for the record, Barbara DiCiano, Neighborhood Services. It will be next to the tree that was dedicated at
Oh,
the
in the park.
memorial that we did at Idlewild Park in the Arboretum.
Okay.
Oh, good. All right. L5.
Mr. Mayor, we have in front of us frequently issues from neighborhood parks in particular that we just don't have adequate parking. So I wanted to, even if it's just in a memo fashion, have it be identified how and what we do so that we can be more responsive to the residents when we get those questions. You give us this, the comment that we hear is you give us this beautiful park and we can't get there without maybe, we may live 3 miles away from the park and taking my daughter in a stroller, we're exhausted by the time we get there and can't have the activities that we planned in the park. So if you could just advise us how it is we determine parking standards for our recreational facilities and identify if there's a need for us to reconsider anything.
Okay. All right. L6. Petition to
Continue this, because Councilman Hashchev isn't here, and we've got our retreat next week, Mr. Mayor.
Right.
I think it's probably better suited for that. And they got the memo.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it really matters after the memo that we received from staff regarding, I mean, at this point in time, we've got to keep that money in reserves.
Well, I'm not so sure that's the case. It's got to be listed as one through Gatsby, but it's, I just think this is a discussion that's got to happen at the retreat.
Well, we can have that discussion at the retreat because if we spend it, we got to find out where we're going to get it from, so.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I might, the memo outlines, basically because of the requirements that were put into the agreement as far as refunds or potential refunds, we have to book this as a liability on the city's financial statement. So while it does increase our cash balance by $7.5 million, it doesn't increase our fund balance by $7.5 million. So basically anything, there's really nothing you can spend out of this. You would be spending down fund balance. And right now we're actually below the minimum amount that we need to budget for of 4%.
Well, let's continue this till the retreat, and this can be part of the discussion at the retreat. Is that okay? Somebody give me a motion. Continue. Second?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item L7.
Resolution number 7671, resolution donating $5,400 from council donation funds to the Great Basin Youth Soccer League for Miracle on Turf, the rebirth of Moana Stadium Fields.
Second. Have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. All right. Let's do the good deeds real quick.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, City Manager. For the record, Chris Good, Director of Neighborhood Services, with a few items of good news to report for you today. First, the Great Basin Food Co-op has moved to the downtown area. They moved to 240 Court Street into a 7,000 square foot facility that's 14 times the size of their earlier location. So they really did expand. They have a lot more to offer now. And what this does is move a grocery store into downtown Reno. It has been reported that there hasn't been a grocery store of quite this magnitude in the downtown area since 1994. So that's a real important development for downtown. It opened just on Saturday, February 11th, and they've been doing booming business.
Where is it?
On Court Street, 240
Okay.
Court Street.
Thank you.
Second piece of good news is congratulations to Superintendent Heath Morrison. He is the 2012 Superintendent of the Year, an award given to him by the American Association of School Administrators. He's been the superintendent of the Washoe County School District since 2009. Since that time, since his arrival, the graduation rate at Washoe County School District has gone from 56% to 70%, just in those 2 years. So it's quite an accomplishment. The award, of course, is important and noteworthy by itself, but one aspect to this is that it may contribute to economic development in the area. When businesses are looking to relocate, the school district, the quality of education is, of course, one of the very important things that they look at. So this is good news for the area. The prize brings with it a $10,000 award, and Mr. Morrison is reported to have suggested that he may use that as scholarship funds for students. Another good news item, Frontier Financial Credit Union members raised almost $4,500 for the Children's Miracle Network through the credit union's 4 Kids program. Throughout the year, the credit union has collected spare change and raised money through candy sales, the Miracle Jeans Days, and Breakfast with Santa, an annual event. They raised this money every year. This year, as I say, it was almost $4,500. The Children's Miracle Network supports programs to benefit children in hospitals, and our local Children's Miracle Network hospital is renowned. Another piece of good news that you're aware of, the Reno Citizens Institute is about to go into full gear this spring. It's going to start next Tuesday. That is February 28th at 6 p.m. will be the first night of an 8-week course where residents of Reno can sign up to learn about their local government. Reno, the city of Reno, was the first local agency in the area to establish such a program years ago. This year, we've done such a good job of promoting it, if I do say so, that we have 33 applicants for the class. That's pretty good. So they're going to begin, as I say, next Tuesday evening, February 28th at 6 p.m. right here at Reno City Hall. They run for 8 weeks through April 17th, and then we will have a graduating ceremony, as we have done before, at your regular April 25th City Council meeting. Finally, it's almost spring, this strange winter that we've had, but we're leading right into springtime now, and the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Department is getting ready to handle it with our 2 community gardens. The Youth and Senior Services Division of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services is working now to prepare soil at both community gardens. There's one at Evelyn Mount Northeast Community Center and the other at Paradise Park. Now, the one at Evelyn Mount Northeast Community Center is tended by children from the Sierra Kids program run by Parks and Rec. Those kids now are visiting the greenhouses. They're planting the seeds at the greenhouses. They're learning about gardening. Eventually, those seeds will be transferred to that Evelyn Mount Northeast Community Center garden, where the children from Sierra Kids will tend the garden through the spring and the summer. At Paradise Park, the community garden there has 44 total plots, and some of those plots are still available for residents to reserve to tend themselves through the spring and the summer. So I would encourage anybody who's interested in learning about gardening, if you already know about gardening and you want to get involved in your community garden, come on down. Call up 334-2262 or visit reno.gov and get yourself a plot at the community garden at Paradise Park. And that's your good news for February 22nd.
Thank you very much. All right. Yeah, I've already had some councilmen suggest that I should get a plot there. It's not for growing gardens, though. Never mind. Item M2.
Here's our bad news for February 22nd, 2010.
For the record, Mike Hernandez, Reno Fire Chief. Just a couple of items of significance. Uh-oh. Not as big as I thought. Staff continues to meet weekly in our deconsolidation plan. You will be seeing a mutual aid agreement, several mutual aid agreements coming to council next month. These are for our federal and our state partners, Bureau of Land Management and the Nevada Division of Forestry. These are the typical mutual aid agreements that we bring every year that allow us to call on federal and state resources and go into detail with respect to our cost-sharing agreements and those type of things. As I mentioned earlier, the county has extended offers to 5 existing employees. I have asked, last week I asked for a comprehensive list of all City of Reno employees that have applied for the county fire positions, and I was told that was proprietary and proprietary information, and they weren't going to share that with us. And lastly, we did schedule a joint fire advisory board meeting for this coming Monday on the 27th. And that is the bulk of my report.
Unbelievable. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask again that we send a letter to the county requesting a joint meeting, not with Sparks and the school board, just us and the county, just to talk about this. I mean, I find it amazing, we haven't met in a year about this fire thing. Not what, we've asked and asked and asked, and they refuse to meet. They're challenging our posting of the Joint Fire Advisory Board meeting because it's not factually correct because we have a name wrong. I'd just like to know if we could at least ask again. I don't think we could ask enough to see if they'd be willing to sit down and discuss the issues. And second to that is, we sort of talked about this earlier, what time frame do you plan on coming to us, chief or city manager, with what is our plan A, I guess, their plan B, when they pull out, about when the layoffs would happen, how many we expect, assuming the worst case scenario that they don't take any of our people, and we're left with what we have about, you said it could be up to 70, but we have to know here pretty soon what that plan's going to be.
Yes, sir, and as we move through, forward through the budget process, I would anticipate generating a memo probably within the next 30 to 60 days on that. And it would be relatively comprehensive with respect to, assuming worst-case scenario, nobody goes across, what our budget would look like, number of stations that would be open, number of employees that we would be eligible to keep or would afford to keep, and what our brownout scenario would look like. So,
Well, 60 days gets us to the April 1st deadline of us sending out layoff notices. So maybe we need a more formal update before then, because we might want to have some input about that and make some changes.
And we'll generate that as quickly as can. We've got some pending meetings that may or may not have an impact on our
I mean, with worst-case scenario, it wouldn't matter what those meetings are.
You're correct.
Yeah, we do need to, because of the time we're running short, it's only 120 days till the whole circus blows up. I think.
Right.
So
We'll start work on that
30,
right away.
60 days if we could do something. All right?
Mr. Mayor, just to follow up on that, for the next agenda, I guess we had voted at the joint meeting to schedule a meeting March, it was publicized that way, March 19th. And we all put it in our calendars, and I guess the city attorney's office is telling us we got to formally.
Well, the DA and the city attorneys both have said we need to do it.
So just another loophole, so I would like to see it on the next agenda. We picked the date, the county commissioners agreed to it too.
Here's my question. When do we have to vote on a meeting?
It's the most ridiculous.
You don't have to vote on a meeting. We don't, just set up the meeting. There's no vote
I'm going to
required.
request that meeting you requested. I'll have the city manager draft me a letter, and I'll send that out this week.
But it's ridiculous. We all picked a date at that meeting, March 19th, but now it seems like some folks are trying to get out of meeting that day.
Right.
So,
Because they think it's legal, and I think that they have to know that we don't legally, neither does the county, vote on their meeting dates. They can set up a meeting and just have a meeting. It was just a discussion at the last joint meeting about when to have it, and maybe the vote doesn't have any impact. They can choose not to come but that's always the case with us.
I think a lot of people in the public were really disappointed. The groups that were representing the seniors and the animals and also fire, that none of these issues were on the agenda at our last meeting. If we're going to meet, might as well meet about stuff we need to, these are serious issues. We're looking at, 3-4 months till this deconsolidation of fire. We've got to get this joint meeting. I want to send a letter immediately to see if they're going to hold to their commitment, Mr. Mayor, on March 19th at 8:30. Let's send a letter. Let's get it back in writing that they're going to meet with us.
Mr. Mayor, council members, for your information, the county commission is placing an item on their agenda on the 28th to vote on this. So we'll know on the 28th whether they want to have a meeting, correct, on March 19th.
I've got a pool set up in my office up there, 25 cents a square.
They're doing that, and also on the agenda items, aren't they? Are they putting those on there?
I'm not sure if I'm not sure if what they're going to put on the agenda includes the items that were discussed at the joint meeting.
We said fire, and we said animal control and seniors.
Correct.
That's what we said. We voted on it. I know it's a technicality because it wasn't agendized, but we don't need to vote on having a meeting. So they're either going to show up and we're going to show the community that we can get this done and work together, or they're going to continue not to have a meeting. But this is absolutely outrageous. I mean, it's beyond comprehension that elected officials are just not meeting and stepping up to the plate and talking about these issues. I just can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Well, I know the Sparks is very interested in animal control. I noticed they've moved it under the sheriff's department now, ahead of time. I thought it was a budget item they were gonna be working on. But they're, wanting to do that, and then the, fire, they're not interested in talking about Sparks, but the, seniors and animal control, they're very interested in talking about. So I will send a letter requesting a meeting with Washoe County to talk about fire, and then I'll send a separate letter requesting the meetings to talk about senior citizens and animal control. Sir, you're too late to speak today. You're already out of order. This meeting's... That's good. Stay in school. Sit down now. You'll like life better sitting in that chair. Anyway, go ahead. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
Tracy Chase, Reno City
Yes.
Attorneys, just as follow-up, as the mayor of the city, you have the ability to call special meetings of the council, so
Yep.
sending a letter over is certainly within your power and authority to do. So I wanted to provide that information for the record.
Well, we'll draft a letter and get it to you, and y'all can bless it. Anyway...
Wait, Mr. Mayor, worst case, when do the mayors and the county manager or county commission chairman meet to set the agenda for the next joint meeting?
We sat with them yesterday and went over the agenda items.
Were these 3 topics added to that agenda?
There was one brought up by Sparks, they didn't remember fire, was it fire? One of them wasn't, they didn't remember being on, but the other 2, Sparks was mainly interested in that. The fire might have been in there as one of them, but those are 3 items that are going to be on the agenda.
On the agenda.
Well, we didn't have the records, and they need to pull the records to see what it was, and we will insist that. All right, we're going to be in recess. We're going to be in recess till the hour of 4 o'clock. Dude, how was school?